The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Saturdays or Sundays, SOR Media, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Any rebroadcast, reproduction, or other use of this broadcast or podcast without the express written consent of SOR Media is strictly prohibited. Listener discretion is advised. Are you experienced? Then come own the night with us.
Little brother has taken control, shoveling dirt in every hole. Predators to condemn your soul, watching you and watching me. We're all
stationed atop the mountains of British Columbia, live from SOR headquarters. This is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
We live behind glass curtains and act like nothing's wrong. Soon you will belong.
You can follow us on our website, spacedoutradio.com, and on Spaced Out Radio on iTunes. You can follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, and on Instagram at Dave Scott SOR, on Facebook at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio.
Brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized. Everyone's got an electric eye with the digital spies. They've watched you for so long. I know you're out there somewhere watching me.
Buckle up, space travelers. It's time to go for a ride on Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
I know you're out there somewhere. We've watched you for so long. Wait for you to fall. We will expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. Little brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized.
It's Tuesday, June 12th, Wednesday, June 13th, if you're on the East Coast or across the pond. And this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. Hope you had a great day and night. I am your host, Dave Scott, broadcasting to you live from the Great White North on top of the mountains of central British Columbia, right here at SOR headquarters. We're 150,000 strong nightly on the SOR radio network, including the Fringe FM, and we welcome you to tonight's show. You can also watch us live on Periscope.tv every Monday through Friday night, and if you want to take a listen to our archives, they are free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do old Davey the favor if you don't mind. Hit that subscribe button, I'd appreciate that. Our website, spacedoutradio.com, has a plethora of features for you. You can rock out to some Bumblefoot, shop at our Spaced Out Radio store, read up on the encounter online, or watch great videos from UFO Seekers, Contact TV, and so much more. We welcome you to our brand new sound tonight. We're working on it all day, all night. I think it's starting to come together here at SOR headquarters with a brand new studio. So we hope you sit back, relax, and enjoy tonight's show. It's all about the UFO phenomena tonight, as Debbie Ziegelmeyer brings nearly 20 years of experience of investigation into the strange skycraft to Spaced Out Radio. As you know, many of us have had UFO sightings and close encounters. Some of us have had alien experiences we cannot explain. It's our stories that need investigating, and that is where people like Debbie come in. Being a member of MUFON, Debbie has been an amateur astronomer since childhood. Her other interests have been as a volunteer archaeologist on 2 NBC projects, Roswell Crash Starling New Evidence, who published her personal Dig Diaries experiences in the book entitled Roswell Dig Diaries, and on the episode of UFO Hunters entitled Roswell Revisited. She has also been an independent investigator for over 25 years, partnered up the last 18 with her brother, Chuck Zukowski. It's going to be a great show indeed. We welcome you to tonight's show. Debbie Ziegelmeyer, welcome. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us tonight on Spaced Out Radio. How are you?
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm just fine.
We're always glad to get people with your type of experience into this show because, once again, you're going to be speaking at the Alien Cosmic Expo in Toronto, June 22nd to 24th. You excited to be coming to spread your message to Canada?
Oh, absolutely. Love Canada. I was on a cruise about 3 years ago, stopped in British Columbia and had a fantastic whale watching experience. So, oh, yes. And it sounds like from the description you gave of where you are, it's a lot better than where I am. It was muggy in the mid-90s today, so I'd love to be someplace cool.
Well, you know what? We were actually out looking for Sasquatch today. That's what we were doing. We were out looking for Sasquatch. In between, we needed a break from working on the studio because we've built this brand new studio here that we are preparing for terrestrial radio. And I looked over at Amy, who's helping me set this up. She's doing most of the work. I'm just sitting here looking pretty. And literally, I looked at her and she was like a zombie. And I'm like, dude, we're going out in the forest. We're going to go look for Sasquatch. And we had a couple of interesting things happen. We did. And at our site, we had some rocks move, some glass rocks moved. And we have this pink slinky sitting on a branch. Tree bark was stuffed into that.
Really?
It was really weird. So we removed the tree bark. We've put a nickel in there now. Bazooka Joe, who's in the chat room, he was with us as well. So we've done that. We've put some more symbolism, as we could say, around the forest to show that we are there. So we are hoping to get going. And I even showed Amy where we found one of our prints a couple of years ago that just vaguely shows where the toe marks were in the foot mark. So she was able to get that. And Amy's, from the United States, so this is her first time into the Canadian wilderness. So, we had a lot of fun today.
Oh, that's great. I'm not, Bigfoot or Sasquatch is not my expertise, but just investigating UFOs, I've come across sites where I know there have been a presence. You can tell by bent over trees, by big, by logs put in the top of trees that couldn't possibly have made their way there on their own, and really high up with X marks, footprint, knuckle prints. That they're out there. And Missouri is home of Momo, which I was given the name by John Schuessler back in the 1970s. So Missouri is a little bit famous, too, for having Bigfoot sightings.
Well, we love us some Bigfoot. We love us some UFOs and aliens, ghosts, whatever. We got the gamut here in British Columbia. Let's talk about UFOs with you for a little bit. I want to know what got you into this field, because everybody has a story, Debbie, and I love to lead it off with our audience learning your story.
I've been asked that a lot. I grew up in Arizona at the foot of the Graham Mountain, where I understand now the Catholic Church has a very large telescope called Lucifer, just to let you know how brilliant the sky was. My brother Chuck and I were the two in the family that always had telescopes. I'd sneak out in the middle of the night and crawl up on the roof of the garage and just lay in the garage roof, look up at the sky, and just try and imagine the vastness of it and what was out there and who was out there. I mean, I grew up in the time of Star Trek and, oh my gosh, Lost in Space and all that type of thing, where it was just intriguing to me. So I guess at a very early age, I was one of those that was grabbing all the UFO books and the UFO articles. I was very interested in the astronaut program. I wish I could have been an astronaut at the time, but back then, I thought they weren't taking women, but they did take Sally Ride. And we have a local astronaut here, Blaine Hammond, is, he's retired now. He lives in Southern California, but Blaine came from Kirkwood, Missouri area, where I live now in Missouri. So, I'm not really sure. It didn't really start with a UFO sighting. It started with the sky. When you go outside and you can see just an infinity of stars, it always piqued my curiosity.
Did you have sightings as a kid?
Not that I know of. My mom was always telling me, she told me stories of how they would find me outside wandering around in the middle of the night. And I think a lot of it was I was just, I was out there looking at the stars and, they were always telling me, come in the house. And my brother Chuck the same way. But my first real UFO sighting, I don't believe was until, oh my gosh, I would think 1979. I was already married and had small children, and we had a UFO sighting then. It was one of those midday afternoon sightings. It was two silver metallic discs, one on top of the other, about 60 degrees in the sky, and the sky was just crystal clear, bright blue, wind blowing. There were people out standing all over looking up. And at the time, 1979, I didn't have a camera. Of course, we didn't have cell phones. And, no one was able to get a picture of it. But it came out in the news later that it was two weather balloons that had made their way from Texas, which wasn't a very good explanation because the wind was blowing and they were stationary in the sky for at least 30 minutes. So that was probably my first unexplained sighting. And the reason that as being an active investigator has only been about the last 25 years was I was raising my children. I was too busy being I wouldn't say soccer mom. It would be a short track speed skating mom and scout leader and everything else with the kids. And then my interests went more toward my own once my children grew up and went off to school.
Was there ever a time that you thought that this phenomena was just people's imaginations?
No, I never did. I don't know why, but I was a big Star Trek fan. I went to every single one of the conferences and met all the key actors and just intrigued by it, but never once crossed my mind. The fantasy part of it I liked with Star Trek. It was intriguing because the stories were more about, real life people going out into space. But it got to a point, I think in 2000, there was a conference here in the St. Louis area, and I went to this UFO conference. It was a MUFON conference. And at that point, I switched from being a Star Trek fan to being a MUFON fan. I immediately joined MUFON, became a field investigator, and that's what I've been doing ever since. But I was investigating UFOs long before that. But no, it never did cross my mind at all that there was any possibility we were the only ones in this entire universe.
When you looked up at the stars, what were you hoping to see as a child or maybe even as a young adult? Were you looking for ships? Were you just looking to see what you could see, investigating the moon, to see the craters? What were you doing?
The moon, I guess, interested in, of course, in the astronaut program and the moon landing, but just the stars, trying to identify, it's kind of funny. I never could. I look at the stars, and there's a lot of the stars that I can identify, the star clusters and of course planets, and I know where everything is. I never could really understand the constellations. I just don't see them. Like Orion, to me just looked like a giant hourglass. And I guess my imagination was beyond these, whatever it was, these figures that were made up of these stars that were supposed to be these mythical creatures, or I just never saw it. But I think when I looked at the stars, it was just dreaming of what was out there, and my curiosity, and that too. I mean, it was just watching shooting stars, and back then too. I mean, there were very few satellites, but I was watching satellites going by, and buying books, knowing exactly when they were going to come by and what part of the sky.
That sounds so dreamy. That's so dreamy. No, but seriously, because we all kind of look in and we all try and find and use our imaginations when we stare up at the stars, trying to figure out what is truly out there. I think it's one of mankind's, or pardon me, peoplekind's, because we're in Canada now, not allowed to say mankind. Peoplekind's greatest feats is staring up at the stars and within wonderment and awe, and taking the time and the moment to just reflect and figure out what is truly out there.
Oh, it is. It's just when you can see stars like I could where I grew up, it was just magnificent. And then just to be watching and, to trying to figure out clusters, and then to just all of a sudden a giant shooting star would go by. That would just make the evening. So, yeah, I think that was a lot of it. I was a dreamer. I'm still a dreamer.
When it comes to UFOs or extraterrestrials, did you ever feel that you were taken? Did you ever feel that you had any sort of ET contact?
As a child, no. As an investigator, yes. Hi. Possibilities. I've investigated over 1,000 cases. I've been involved in cases where I've actually had a bit of missing time, along with another investigator. I've experienced some pretty unbelievable, bizarre things that have happened. It's just the nature of investigating. You can go out and investigate 5 or 6, and if you're lucky enough, maybe you see something a second night along with what the witness saw. But when you've investigated so many things, and especially in the state of Missouri, this is unbelievable, the sightings, the amount of sightings, and the quality of sightings that we have here. And your equipment, the batteries in your equipment and your partner's equipment all go dead. Or what happened to Chuck and I in Hooper, Colorado, we were there with Alejandro Rojas from Open Minds, and our car batteries went dead. There were 3 vehicles right in a line that our vehicles, the batteries went dead. Everything that we had a battery in went dead. I've been on an investigation, and then the next day, I'm home after the investigation, and then I find a mark on me. I thought, well, I don't even know where that came from. I wasn't even involved in any place where I could have gotten. So you don't know. From the witness reports that I've heard, it's, people don't remember. At this point, I'm an investigator. I want to stay focused on what I'm doing, gathering my information. And I've had people say, well, do you want to do something that's regression and find out if, in fact, in all of this that you've investigated at some point, maybe you have been taken? I thought, no, I don't want to lose my perspective. I'd rather just stay focused on what I'm doing, and I don't want to make this about me. I want to make this about the investigation that I'm doing.
Is that what led you to MUFON? How did you get started there?
Going to the conference. I was lucky enough. The conference that I went to was in St. Louis in 2000. And there was Bruce Maccabee, Bud Hopkins, Stanton Friedman. Oh, my gosh. Those are just 3 off the top of my head that I could remember. I couldn't believe the intelligence, I guess not only the expertise of the people, their backgrounds of what what, well, like Stanton, nuclear physicist. And here's somebody saying, well, yeah, of course there's, UFOs. And to listen to people, credible people, I always had it in the back of my mind, oh yeah, there are UFOs and I'd like to see this. And I believed all that, but to have somebody with some actual credibility saying, yes, and this is what we've seen and this is what we investigate. I thought, oh, I'm playing around with, which I still love Star Trek, but I'm playing around with Star Trek, and I should be, and this is what I need to be doing. I need to be finding out. And at the time, I believe X-Files had just come out. And so when they asked me, well, why do you want to join MUFON? I said, because I want to know the answers. I want to know what's going on. I believe, and I want to know the answer to the question. Now that I've done this for a few years, I'm almost sorry I asked. I know way more answers to questions. I know answers to more questions than I ever would have thought to ask of these questions. It's unbelievable what's going on out there, what has been going on for centuries, and most of the public has no idea at all. They walk around in their little, I guess, little dome of innocence, living their lives and not realizing that a lot of what we do and a lot of who we are has been influenced for centuries by somebody.
Well, I think it's a mainstream attitude, Deb, because it doesn't fit into the parameters of the house with the picket fence, the 9 to 5 job, which is now probably about 9 to 8 o'clock, or 7 to 8 o'clock. That's AM to PM, the children, the dog, it doesn't fit into the parameters. And I can understand why, with the advancement of technology, that more people aren't looking up at the skies, or more people aren't paying attention to what may particularly be an interesting concept of humanity.
Well, and that's what's really sad about a lot of it, that this is being hidden from the public to a certain extent. I think it started with my children, desensitizing the children to what was going on. And now with the grandchildren, you can ask my grandchildren about UFOs. It's never, are there aliens or are there UFOs? They said there are. They don't question whether or not they exist. They know they exist. The questions that they have are, well, where do they come from? And what type of, how many different beings are there? And, that type of thing, that you get these questions from children now, because they're integrated into their cartoons and their TV shows and into their regular life. And so when they finally decide to have, the governments of the world decide to have some kind of disclosure, it's not going to be a shock to the younger people. It'd be more of a shock. I think the baby boomers, we had so much free information back with the, in the 50s and the 60s, pilots could come out and openly admit they'd had a UFO sighting. You can't do that now. Although they are coming out, now the Navy has been releasing some tapes. So hopefully this will take a whole turnaround back to more of the freedom of information that we used to have in the past. But I don't know, I kind of I'm babbling here. What was the question?
Well, just in regards to you joining MUFON and whether or not that was a good choice for you and how successful it has been for you.
Well, it was a good choice because I had all these questions, and now I've found out a lot of the answers and a lot more than I would have thought. And, and what's the saddest thing about that? You were talking about how people have their normal lives and just walk along their everyday routine until they have a sighting, until we have somebody whose child has been abducted. I did a presentation at Devil's Tower I believe it was in September, the 40th anniversary of Close Encounters. And my presentation was on Missouri real-life close encounters. We had a case where in 2007, a 9-year-old little girl was taken, and what it did to the family. That the girl was taken. She came back with marks. The parents didn't believe it happened. The mother finally did start to remember. The father couldn't deal with it. They got a divorce. The little girl, it played on her mind so badly that for the next 2 years the mom pulled her out of school and had to homeschool her. So this broke up the marriage just like it did in Close Encounters, separated, alienated the husband and wife from each other because the husband could not deal with this. And this happens. I've had sightings where people have seen this craft and then the side of their face or their arm is burnt and they cannot believe, they can't wrap their mind around what happened. I had another sighting where a gentleman and his 2 sons were out camping, and he thought there was a fire in the woods at about 1:30 in the morning, and it was this glow, and it started pulsating, and then this craft just lifted up and went off into the sky. He packed up the children in his tent and went home, and now this man, he's found religion, but he was a religious person, but not to the extent that he is now. He turned off the regular radio channels that he used to listen to, and he listens to nothing but Christian channel. He goes to church 5 days a week. And what's really odd is this gentleman is terrified of clowns, which is one of the...
Oh, who isn't? Who isn't?
Well, I don't like mimes. I can deal with a clown, but there's something seriously wrong with mimes.
Clowns and gnomes. I hate those gnomes.
Well, mimes. There's something wrong with these guys that can't even talk. But they're like a clown, and then they're different. But he's absolutely just terrified of clowns. So this type of thing changes people's lives if they have an encounter that is a really serious encounter. We're working on one now where there was a gentleman that had an encounter in a cabin that he's got locally, a lakeside cabin, and they're selling the cabin. They don't want to go back. So this is life-changing, life-altering when things like this happen to people. And maybe that's why they are limiting our knowledge of it. I don't know if that's a good thing or bad.
Do you find that with people who have those experiences where they are so traumatized by it, whether it's turning to religion or selling their property, do you find that they are tough to get information out of about what they saw, or do they clam up and really say, look, I don't want to talk about this. I'm not comfortable about it. I want to just forget about what happened and move forward without ever thinking about it again, because it's traumatic for a lot of people. It's scary for a lot of people when they may have never believed in anything of this sort, and then all of a sudden it's right in front of them.
They go through stages. The little girl, which now I believe she's I started looking at the case when I was looking at my to do my presentation on Close Encounters, and I realized this 9-year-old little girl is 21 years old now. And I tried to contact her again. A lot of the people, what they do is they sell their house. Well, first of all, to start with the answer to the question, at first it's denial. And with the 9-year-old little girl, she was having nightmares. And so she was saying she had told her parents that she had seen a UFO. They were at a national park, passing a national park, and the parents just said, no, it was some kind of military maneuver. And as things progressed, they finally contacted us to talk to her and to convince her that she had not had a sighting, and she was drawing pictures. And we took a actually not a child psychologist, but took a psychologist with us to talk to this child. And then after a couple weeks, the mom started to remember that something had happened. Then the dad started to remember. Their bits and pieces of memory came back. And the hardest part for the mom was that they said that when they took her daughter, they left, she and her husband were standing there, and they took their shoes. And she says, I didn't understand that maybe they thought we would leave our daughter, but maybe not if they had our shoes. And so she said, we watched them take our shoes and get on this craft with our daughter, and we waved goodbye. And then pretty soon our daughter came back, and our daughter handed us our shoes, and we all left. And she started crying, and she said, I can't believe I stood there and let them take my daughter, and I didn't even fight them. So then she had to get around the guilt of that, and we helped her through that. And then after she got her mind wrapped around that, then her husband couldn't take it anymore, and she had to deal with a divorce. So this goes through stages. I have sightings where there was one where there was a craft that landed in the back woods of this house. They had bought a piece of property, and we're all excited about this property, and we're going to build a bigger home, and that's where they're going to raise their children. And after the sighting, they picked up and they moved. So it is something really hard to deal with, and it does come in stages. Some people just don't want to talk about it all. Once they find out what's happened, we try and get them a little bit of help. Some people get to the point where everything they see they think is a UFO, and then it's almost become an obsession. And that was a little bit like what happened to, I guess it would be Roy on Close Encounters. I mean, he just absolutely became obsessed with this, but then, he also had that obsession to get to Devil's Tower. But then his wife was just the opposite and didn't want anything to do with it, and just thought that he was insane. So, and that's actually how this plays out in some families. Some people cannot deal with it. Some are obsessed with it. And we have a lot of people who become field investigators. I have several of my field investigators that started here in Missouri. They became MUFON field investigators because they had a major sighting, and the only way they could deal with it was to try and become an investigator and find out what's going on. So, I mean, I guess it's just different people deal with this in different ways.
I understand that, because one of the questions we have always asked on this show, Debbie, is when you have an experience that you've never had before, how are you going to react? How are you going to react? And it's amazing how many people who've never had an experience, and I don't mean this to sound sarcastic or to upset anybody, but it's amazing how many people talk tough about that. Well, I'm going to get my camera out. I'm going to take pictures. If I see an alien, I'm going to run up to it. I'm going to jump on that ship. I'm going to take off. And they don't really understand that it's more like that horror movie side of things, where when something strange is in front of you, you kind of freeze up because your eyes are seeing something that the brain cannot translate.
Well, too, and okay, so start with, I'm going to grab my camera. Well, most likely their camera's not going to work. If they have that close of an encounter, their camera, the batteries are going to go dead, their cell phone's going to go dead. Then as far as, okay, I'm going to run and I'm going to get on the ship. Oh, well, you're probably not going to run and get on the ship. They're probably going to take you and put you on the ship, and you're not going to remember. So, just from experience, this is how it goes down. People most likely, I mean, they don't remember. You had Betty and Barney Hill, who remembered later on after regression. One of the exceptions to this was Travis Walton, who's a very good friend of mine. And Travis started out, he was the brave guy. He had chased down a bear just a couple weeks before. The crew was coming back from cutting trees, and Travis Walton saw a bear going across the road, and he got out and was chasing this bear. So now there's this UFO, and he said he got out and he's running toward it. He said, I got about halfway there, and I'm thinking, oh, no, what am I doing? I need to turn around and go back, but I don't want to look like a coward. He said, so he jumped in a bush, and when the craft started to take off, just the inertia, the force of this thing taking off, threw him in the air up over the trees. He landed, most likely was near dead, and they took him and repaired him. And he's one of the few people that does remember what happened to him, and they didn't mean to take him. They took him because they knew they injured him. So this doesn't play out all that easy. And investigators can go out every single night of the year and not see something, and it happens when you least expect it. I think Stanton Friedman was talking about how, last I spoke with him, he said he hadn't had a sighting. I'm running onto the sightings, and, it just happens when you're on an investigation. If you get there soon enough, there's a good chance that it's going to happen again, or you're going to see something similar, maybe not the exact same thing, but, well, the one with the craft landing, he said there was a light that was still hovering over there. Well, there wasn't. It shut down our cameras. and I did find a landing site in that area. This is south of St. Louis. So it doesn't play out like people think, and it can be very, very scary, but the investigation too is also very exciting. It's like a mystery novel. You can only get so far with the answers. Sometimes, you can never get the final answer. You can speculate, or you can say, well, this is what I saw, and this is what I know it isn't. But, you're not there saying, okay, it was these people, and it was these two aliens, and this is their name, and they came from here. There's no finalization to this. And maybe that's what I'm looking for.
Sandra, Debbie, you've been doing this a long time now, and not to give out your age or anything, because you're still a beautiful, beautiful lady.
Thank you.
I do want to ask you this, though.
Huh?
You've been doing this a long time. You've had your own sightings. And I've never asked this question before on the show. Do you respect people who research this field who've never had an experience?
Oh, absolutely. That's tougher to do. It's easy to be passionate about something when you've had personal experience. It's really hard to be passionate about something that you're just researching. A researcher has a lot tougher job, I believe, than an investigator, because we can go out and MUFON has about a 3-month deadline. They like us to close out maybe a close encounter, CE 3, 4, 5, close encounter, craft landing, alien sighting, that type of thing. They want that closed out within 3 months, and so we've got finalization. At least for that, we can go out and we're hands-on investigating. But then you have a researcher. That's just a lot of time going through books and online and finding information and interviewing people, and you don't get to experience the reality of it, which was funny. In 2006, my brother and I went on our second archaeology dig at Roswell in the debris field, and they had invited Richard Dolan to come along. Where Richard came, it was kind of funny. We're there in our boots, and we have our gloves, and we're ready to start working on this archaeology digging and sifting. And Richard shows up in dress shoes and khaki pants and a dress shirt, like a short sleeve dress shirt. He thought he was just going to be interviewed, and he didn't realize he was going to be digging in the dirt, and he was going to be sifting. And he said this was the first time he'd actually physically been on an investigation, trying to gather at least trace evidence, and he loved it. So, it's easier to be an investigator and easier to keep your interest, because there's just that one more thing. I guess the difference would be somebody, I don't know if I should use that as an example, because they're all important people. My daughter's a firefighter, and she had a choice to where she could just stay and be a dispatcher, and she says, I want to be out there fighting fires, and so that's what she does. So a lot of us, maybe we need that. We're A-type personality, and we need that experience.
But for a lot of people who deal with investigators or read up on investigators or researchers who have never had that experience, it's very tough to try and, I don't want to use the word convince, okay, but have them believe the experience that that person has gone through. Do you see what I'm saying there? Because there's always a skepticism, and I think skepticism is healthy. All right, but when you're an experiencer, and I will say this, I'm an experiencer. I have no problem saying that, right? I'm a multiple experiencer. And when I have somebody who doesn't take me at my word, even if they don't know me, there's always that disappointment. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, but I've met a lot of people in this field who, like Richard Dolan, for instance, or Stanton Friedman. I'm not sure if either one of them has had an experience. I know that, like I said, Stan probably, still has not. But they're both excellent researchers. Had it not been for Stanton Friedman, we wouldn't know about Roswell. And even though he's not had a personal experience, when you go and you interview military person after military person, people who have been there, and you're getting the same story after story, the same thing from all these different people who now live in different parts of the country. When someone like Richard, where he investigates, he picks, a topic and thoroughly investigates that topic. Yeah, he has to be a believer to be able to do as good of a job as he does at this. Someone who didn't believe in what they were doing couldn't be that good of a researcher. And without researchers, people like me would make our job a lot harder. Because when I go out on a sighting or when I do a presentation and I'm trying to present what I have seen, I go back and I use other people's research and naturally give them full credit. But a lot of my, like Carl Fylth, his book, UFOs in Water, is just a remarkable book. And without these people doing this research and having the time and the energy to go out and get this information for us, it helps the investigators. And the people like us that are the investigators and make contact with the witnesses, it helps the researchers. And so you need both of us. And I have a lot of respect for the people that can just go out there with not having ever seen anything and be that diligent and do the work that they do, because to me, that seemed like that would be really tough.
See, for me, and maybe I'm the only one, I don't know if I would want someone who's never had an experience understanding or investigating what I have gone through. Whether they're with a credible organization like MUFON, or maybe somebody like Peter Davenport in New Fork, or wherever it is. I would want them to have that experience. And the reason why is I want to feel comfortable. I don't want to feel like I'm on, being judged by a trial judge and, judge, jury, and executioner. In someone trying to tell me, well, that's not what I've heard before. That's a little bit different. That sounds a little bit odd. What were you drinking? What were you smoking?
Serious investigator wouldn't do that. Early on, almost right from the beginning, being a female investigator, it seemed like I attracted all the female abductees. I would have, I'd be just at a conference. Chuck and I, when we first started, we had this thirst for knowledge. We were at every conference. If there was a conference, we would pull, and that's kind of how we got together. He lives in Colorado and I live in Missouri, and we would pull our resources. And the fun part about it is, we're a man and a woman, but we're brother and sister. We could share one room, and our spouses do not have an issue with it. Also my brother, until he was let go from the police department because he investigated a horse mutilation. And, that's kind of a whole nother story, but but he carries a sidearm, so I know I'm safe. But I would, going to all these different places, I started having women, and it seemed like about the same age group. And they would come up to me and tell me about how they had been taken, how at one point they believed they were pregnant, and after about 4 to 5 months, they were not. And they had these strange dreams that they actually saw their child. They were taken someplace and they were handed their child, which looked half like them and half like an alien being. And then the child was taken from them. And I heard this story from a woman, and she was crying. I happened to be in Colorado at the time. And she was crying and she was telling me this. And she says, I can't tell a man this. They wouldn't understand. And, I kind of hugged her and I just said, I don't know a lot about abductions, but I think you should probably, let me see what I can find for you. And I contacted MUFON and found out that, and I don't know if Kathleen Martin was, I believe at the time, maybe I might have put her in contact with her, but I can't really remember. So that was the first one, and then I went to another conference, and another woman about the same age group came up to me and told me the same story. So now I had the experience from the first woman who had told me this, and I could relate. Here, I'm hearing the same story, and one of them, lived in Ohio, one lived in Colorado, and I have probably heard 8 or 10 stories. Women come up to me and they tell me the same story. So even though I have not had the experience, I've got the shared experiences of other women where I can be empathetic, where I can understand, where I can try and lead them someplace to where they can get some kind of help, or at least let them know whether or not, I guess, give them maybe closure to where they're not crazy, and I'll explain to them, you're not, am I insane? I don't even know. I know I was pregnant. No, I'm not. I can't tell my husband. And I just tell them, you're not the first one I've heard this from. You're not even the third or fourth person I've heard the exact same story from, and it's comforting to them. So there are groups now. You can go through MUFON, and there's an experiencer group that they can put you in touch with an experiencer group in your area. You start out at the MUFON site talking to Kathleen Martin. But I believe a good investigator I've investigated so many cases and heard so many that, no, I would never, even though you don't have to experience something. It's like a doctor. Let's say you've got a doctor that treats cancer. That doesn't, just because he's still able to treat cancer, he knows all about it, but he's never had cancer. But he's had enough patience to where he knows how to talk to these people and to help them share their experience and point them in the right direction. So I don't know. I don't think you have to experience something to be able to help somebody.
I want to ask you personally, if you don't mind, and I have had no problem bringing this up into the public because we have a lot of MUFON people who come on here, and I think they're very, very good people whom we have brought on to interview during this show before, from Stu Bundy all the way down to Terry Ling and other investigators on there. But MUFON has seemed to trip over its own feet for a number of years now. Has that ever frustrated you the way it frustrated somebody like Chris Cogswell, who just up and quit shortly after joining MUFON and becoming one of the top scientists in the group?
I never met Chris. I don't know a lot about him. Every group has their problems. For the most part, if you think about it, if you want to find someone who's actually, or an organization who's actually serious about investigating UFO sightings, MUFON is the number one organization, because you've got Peter Davenport's site, National UFO Recording Center, but he just records the sightings, which is a phenomenal website, because I cross-check a lot of my sightings against that. But MUFON are the people who actually go out. I mean, I have 18 investigators in Missouri, and every single state has someone who actually can go out and investigate these sightings. And you've got a lot of A-type personalities. You've got a lot of different cultures, a lot of different people with different political ideas, and you get all these people who, most of us are A-type personalities, and you mix them together, and once in a while you're going to have a little bit of a glitch. But for the most part, we really get along. Every conference is just, it's like a family reunion. And when Craig Lang passed away, I just absolutely couldn't believe it. I mean, I would only see him maybe twice a year at conferences, and then, he passed away. I believe it was in February, just quickly, and it was like I lost a family member. So, and we're a family. Families have problems. Families argue. Families have problems. But for the most part, we're strong. We're a strong organization, and we're a close knit family, because we've all experienced, especially the investigators. We can get together and we can talk, and a lot of the state directors too. We can get together and we talk, and we're all experiencing the same thing. And it's nice to be able to go someplace, especially to the MUFON Symposium, which by the way is coming up, I believe it's July 26th through 29th in Cherry Hill, Pennsylvania. But Philadelphia. Not Philadelphia, is Pennsylvania. I'm sorry, it's midnight here. But it's at Cherry Hill in Philadelphia. But we can feel like we can talk with each other about things that we've experienced with the investigations, to where I don't talk about this with my husband. And I know most of us don't discuss this with our spouses, even though, unless our spouse is also, which is very rare, also doing the investigations, because it's a hard thing to try and share, especially if my husband knew half of the things that I've done and the places that I've been. It would scare the bejeebers out of him. He heard me telling one story, and he turned around and looked at me, and I hadn't even let him read Ben Meserich's book on Chuck Zukowski, 37th Parallel. I said, you don't even want to read that. So I think, to try and shorten a long answer, no, I'm proud to be with MUFON, and I think for the most part we're a fantastic organization.
And I would agree with you. I think the people who are field investigators, such as yourself and other people who are involved, are there for the right reasons. However, I do question, and I'm on record for it, so I'm not going to be someone who is going to sit here and deny it to you, but I am on record as saying I do question some of the business ethics. I mean, that's going back to Robert Bigelow between 2009 to 2011. We have the John Ventry issue with racism and his personal posts on his Facebook. Then we find out that he is still somewhat involved behind the scenes with MUFON conferences. And it just seems like the upper echelon of MUFON continues to kind of kick the people such as yourself or Terry or Chase or Ryan Stacy or whoever it may be right down to the ground again, affecting the credibility of the impressive hard work that you are doing.
Well, it's as far as like John, there's a set of standards and practices that MUFON follows. I mean, we're a nonprofit. We do have standards and practices, and when we feel as a board member, we feel that someone has violated those standards and practices, then they're dealt with as they should be. But you have to understand too that we're in several different states, and so you've got our executive director in California, and if you have somebody on the other side of the United States who may still be involved behind the scenes. We're not a police state. It's really hard. All you can do is say, listen, you have violated standards and practices, and, there's consequences. But you can't physically force somebody to become uninvolved. People are going to be involved in things. Behind the scenes, and there's not a lot that you can do about it as long as they're not using the MUFON name. And as far as Bigelow, I don't know. That was before I actually did the first Star Team Bigelow case. That's in Ben Meserich's book. I went out, left opening day at opening day Cardinal Stadium and went to Kansas and did one of those. And I was supposed to meet up with a couple Bigelow guys that never showed. That, I wasn't real sure about that. I wasn't on the board. I'm sure that when they involved him, maybe they thought that would be a good way of maybe helping to finance MUFON, because it's really hard to try and finance all of this through donations. I believe because of the people who were in charge at the time, it didn't go well. I believe that there was some kind of a relationship today with Jan, especially with Jan Harzan being the executive director, that would have played out entirely different, whether or not he would have been invited into MUFON or not. But I know that I trust in Jan, and I think that would have played out a lot different today. And as it is, at least Bigelow's out there coming right out saying he's been spending millions and millions of dollars because he believes in UFOs. That's got to speak for something. At least we got some businessman out there saying, yes, I'm not wasting my time. He's also spending all this money training astronauts. He took a piece of something that Chuck and I found at the 2002 dig in Roswell and analyzed it. First, it's really tough to get things analyzed. First of all, in 2002, Sci-Fi spent $25 a piece on the 14 objects that we found, that the group as a whole found. And the piece that we found, it was a site analyzation. $25 got us, it looks like duct tape without the threads. That's like saying a car looks like a boat, only it's got wheels. It was ridiculous. And so it took a couple years, but my brother was able to get this piece from the University of New Mexico in Albuquerque and analyze it. And the piece came up as being really, really pure aluminum with a little bit of silicon. And then a few years later, we had a press conference and said, hey, if anybody has the resources and can take this one step further, then we were contacted by Bigelow, and he took the piece. Right. And it came back with an unknown element. Now, an unknown element.
Deb, I'm going to get you to hold on to that thought. We're going to get into this. I just got to go to our commercial break here. Debbie Ziegelmeyer is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. She will be speaking at the Alien Cosmic Expo in Toronto, Ontario, June 22nd to 24th. So if you're on the East Coast or looking for a getaway, that is the place to be. We're going to talk more Robert Bigelow, MUFON, UFOs, and more with Debbie right after this.
Find your escape where time has no limits. It's about living today and cherishing the heritage of yesterday. A spirit of adventure for what is new, with the nostalgia of the past. Your timepiece is a reflection of who you are. Life surrounded by beauty from the world around us to the soul within. EscapeWatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
The freedom to post what you want, when you want. That's the social media freedom you need. Social Media Freedom is the free app in your app store. No need to worry about going to jail or being shadow banned any longer. It's the freedom to say what you feel. The freedom to know Big Brother isn't watching. It's the way social media is supposed to be. Social Media Freedom. It's time to set yourself free. Download from your app store today.
Coming September 28th to the 30th, it's our first annual Caribou Paracon, put on by Spaced Out Radio and the Canadian Society of Questers. 3 days of paranormal, supernatural, and spiritual knowledge in the beautiful 108 Mile Ranch, British Columbia. Tickets are $150 Canadian for the event, being held at the Spruce Hills Resort and Spa. Come watch our featured speaker, Grant Cameron, along with Lorian Fenton, David Weatherly, Ross Allison, and more. The Caribou Paracon, celebrating everything paranormal.
Hey Space Travelers, it's Joe Roop, your host of Spaced Out Saturdays. Come join me as we explore the realms of the paranormal, the esoteric, and everything in between every Saturday night at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern. You know the truth is out there. Don't get caught sleepwalking. Come join Spaced Out Saturdays. That's every Saturday night, 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, right here on SpacedOutRadio.com.
Hi there, this is Tessa Nicole Thomas, and I'm going to take you for a ride every Sunday night on Spaced Out Sundays. I'm going to set up your week with some strange tales from across North America, from psychic readings, Sasquatch, UFOs, to the most haunted locations. Come join me at SpacedOutRadio.com starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, and let's get weird together. I'd love for you to join me. Spaced Out Sundays at SpacedOutRadio.com.
365 days a year, we're in the field, investigating UFO sightings, talking to alien abductees, and visiting secret military locations like Area 51. We're UFO Seekers, official partner of Spaced Out Radio. Follow our daily search for the truth at UFOseekers.com or like us on social media. Catch us on Spaced Out Radio every third Monday of the month as we discuss Area 51, UFOs, and more. And also, don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube.
It's paranormal news at its finest. Welcome to The Encounter. At spaceoutradio.com, The Encounter online is SOR's trusted news source for everything weird and strange going on around the world. This is news editor Eric Markham. Our team of journalists are scouring the planet for those strange stories that rarely make the mainstream. No fear-mongering or fake news here. Head over to spaceoutradio.com and encounter The Encounter.
Heading to Vancouver and looking for some great nightlife? The Moose Vancouver is the place to be. Catch a game on one of the big screens or just come rock out to your favorite 80s and 90s hair bands. Great food starting at $6.95. The Moose Vancouver is open until 2 a.m. nightly. It's easy to find near the corner of Nelson and Granville. The Moose Vancouver is the official rocking bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Want to learn more about aliens, cover-ups, conspiracies, cryptids, and the paranormal? All you have to do is tune in S4 as we take over the Spaced Out Radio night, starting at midnight Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern, each and every Saturday night, right after Spaced Out Saturdays. Hi there, this is Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal. Join me, Corey Ruiz, and friends as we discuss the hot topics of the night. It's fun, entertaining, and as dark as the night. Find us at spacedoutradio.com.
Are you interested in advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Head to our website at spacedoutradio.com and click on our advertising tab. There, you will find an assortment of ways you can get your product out there with us, from radio commercials to banners and social media. Have a product you like our hosts to endorse? We can do that too. Visit spacedoutradio.com for more details.
Do you want to know what's really going on in your world? Do you have questions about who you can trust in the mainstream media? Then look no further than the Rebel Planet. Come get the straight answers right here at spacedoutradio.com. Join me, Jamie Sexton, creator of Rebel Planet News, as I fill you in on the stories behind the stories. All you truth seekers, be sure to tune in to Rebel Planet on spacedoutradio.com the third Thursday of every month.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. And hit us up on Twitter using the hashtag SpacedOutRadio. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Welcome back to the second hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Great to have you with us. Tomorrow night on the program, we have a little bit of a change. We were going to have Jim Thomas on to talk about his ET experiences. However, he had a really close friend pass away. So Olaf Phillips is going to join us. We're going to be talking UFOs, secret space program, and whatever comes up with Olaf starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern time at spacedoutradio.com. We welcome back everyone listening in on the SOR radio network, including the Fringe FM. Don't forget, you can also check out our archives. Go to youtube.com/spacedoutradio. It is free. Do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button. I would greatly appreciate it. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. It is Fanfaronade. Fanfaronade is your password. Make sure you use it wisely, Space Travelers, as Bill sets a password each and every night right here on the mighty SOR. Now, if you want to follow us on our website, spacedoutradio.com, we got a plethora of features for you. You can rock out to some Bumblefoot, shop at our Spaced Out Radio store, read up on the encounter online, or watch great videos from UFO seekers, and so much more. Tonight, we are talking with Debbie Ziegelmeyer. She is a MUFON director, and she does some amazing investigations, including underwater. She will also be speaking in just about 10 days' time here in Toronto, Ontario, at the Alien Cosmic Expo, being held the 22nd through the 24th. So I highly suggest, even though I'm not going to be there, but I'm going to have a lot of good friends there, head on over to Toronto if you're on the East Coast, in Ontario, in New York, wherever you may be, Michigan. Head on over to Toronto. Catch the Alien Cosmic Expo. You will love the information there. Debbie, welcome back to SOR.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for having me back.
Not a problem. Not a problem whatsoever. We love having you here as well. What are you going to be speaking on at ACE?
UFOs in the Great Lakes region and experiences in Roswell. Our investigations, my investigations, and my brother Chuck Zukowski's investigations in Roswell. So I'll be speaking twice.
Well, aren't you lucky? Aren't you lucky? Well, that's good. Do you enjoy doing conferences? Is it something where you still enjoy, after all this time, getting in front of the public and talking about your research?
I guess. I've been told I like to talk. Especially by my husband. I do enjoy it because there's so much out there, and I enjoy sharing it with everybody. I get really enthusiastic about what I research and what I speak about, and it just seems, I don't know, it's fun. I enjoy spreading, and I think it's very important to spread the information. I'm not one of those who does research and then kind of keeps it to myself, and these are my personal files. No, I try and tell everybody as much as I can, because I think that's the most important part of being with MUFON and being an investigator, is to get the information out there for everybody.
Do you find that when you are on stage and you are communicating with an audience that some are sure that it's happened to them, some are not sure if they even believe the phenomena? Do you feel you are still opening minds to those who may not have had that experience, or maybe not have heard of some of the existential things that are moving forward in the field of ufology?
Most people who come to the conferences have they believe that there is something going on. And a lot of them have had their own experiences. Very few of the people that come to the conferences are just there for the first time and not really sure. You get a few of them, maybe a spouse has brought along, someone has brought along their spouse, or we have had a few that have been staying at a hotel and just decided it'd be something interesting. But for the most part, you don't have to convince anybody. They're there because they're already convinced. The fun part is to share the information with them, and I can see sometimes that they're shaking their heads. Yes, this has happened to me, or yes, I believe that, or yes, I have seen that. I'm not crazy. And I think that's gratifying to know that we're there and we're sharing information, but we're also opening up the minds of a lot of people to things that are out there, and it's not just them. This is happening worldwide and has been going on for a long time, and it puts a lot of people, their minds at ease, that they're not crazy, that yes, this is real.
I do have to know, because I have an absolute fascination here. You have your underwater diving license. Have you taken up the fact of trying to figure out what maybe any of these underwater USOs are?
Well, the problem with that is everything is extremely deep. I'm a, which it's kind of funny. I'm a PADI, Professional Association of Dive Instructors. Sorry, mouth isn't working. I'm a PADI instructor, and but even with that, I'm a recreational diver. So our limitation is 130 feet. Even though I've been more to about 100 and probably 140 or 145 feet deep, just drifting. But most of what is down there that needs to be investigated is several hundred feet. There are. I mean, I know there was something in the Baltic. There were some gentlemen that looked like a craft that has crashed there, and they're still investigating that. You know, and I've seen pictures of it, and there are divers there, but that stuff is far and few in between. Everything is very, very, very deep. And although our section director, Chuck Frieden from Columbia, Missouri, is a mini sub pilot, has a mini sub pilot license, you still have to come up with a mini sub, and you still have to have, you know, a goal of this is what I want to look at. And it's not all that easy. Most of what's underwater are what are called fast movers. They're picked up by submarine sonar operators, and it's something that just goes by them at a very high rate of speed, faster than anything that's known to man. That's not something I could investigate. Even things like pyramids and things that are underwater, a lot of that is really deep. You're limited with how long you can stay under.
Do you believe then, with your underwater experience and everything that you've seen while diving, and understandably that these craft, if they are underwater, that they are submerged in much deeper conditions than you could even ever dive, do you believe that we are not looking into USOs a little bit more or a little bit less than what we should?
Well, first of all, not all of them. You know, I know I said that things, when you go and try and investigate something, okay, there is something underwater that someone needs to take a look at. Most of the time, that is very, very, very deep. Although I do have some reports out of Puerto Rico. One report in particular that, you know, that's kind of my favorite. It was a skin diver. There was a craft that was underwater. It was only at about 23 feet deep. And he was a fisherman who would just skin dive and take a spear gun and fish. And he went down, sat on the thing, and he was watching this craft sucking water up and then filtering it out. So this is kind of the exception that this gentleman, actually, I think it was like 1986 or 88. But as far as underwater and in trying to investigate, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought here. What was the question again?
Well, do you think we're taking enough time to really look for UFOs under the water? Underwater.
No. And that's the exciting thing about this, is that's where we should be looking. That was another reason too I became a diver. Well, I kind of became a diver by default. It wasn't really something I wanted to do. I was afraid of the water, and I ended up, my husband got all excited, bought me this equipment, and the rest is history. But right off, since 2003, I was teaching underwater UFO, USO search and recovery classes, because there are things that are underwater, and we don't have near enough people under there looking for them. But the beauty of it is now that with all these satellites, I think there was I was watching, it was a couple nights ago, I was watching Fox News, and they had a gentleman on who was ex-CIA, and he said, he was talking to Hannity, and he said, you know, at any given time, the Chinese and the Russians can, from their satellite, watch you take a shower. And he said, that's unnerving. And he said, not that anybody would want to see you take a shower, but they have the capabilities. So now it's really hard to hide anything. That's why I believe that the craft, they're going underwater first of all, to help fuel, they're using hydrogen. I believe they're using the hydrogen from the water to help fuel their electromagnetic field. That might have to do with a lot of that sifting that's coming through. But another, it's a very good hiding place. And we've got more and more underwater bases. We've been building underwater bases since before the 1960s. The U.S. personally. There's reports of underwater bases everywhere. I talked to Jorge Martin from Puerto Rico, and he was telling me that there's he's got a fantastic website. You need to go to his website. He's got fantastic pictures of something that looks like a vortex opening up and a craft coming out and then going in and out of the water. I mean, he's got pictures from NOAA, from Google Earth, where there are anomalies that are seen from satellites. So even some of the satellites are picking up things that are going on underwater. But that's the place to be hiding. You can go on right now and you can Google Groom Lake. And I kind of zoomed in and, there's the runway, Area 51. It's really hard to hide anything now on the surface of the Earth. And so that's a fantastic place to go, is underwater. And these craft are coming from light years away. They're dealing with the vacuum of space and coming with ease right into our atmosphere and then right down into the water. And so they're conditioned not only for space, but I guess they're also capable. Their electromagnetic field, I guess, that protects them in space is also protecting them coming in and out of our atmosphere without causing a sonic boom and then going in and out of the water with ease. You take a regular airplane and you try and, when you hit the water, it's not going to be pretty. But these things just go right in, go at a high rate of speed. And I think it was in Carl Fylth's book, UFOs in Water. He was talking about that, how there's this electromagnetic field that's probably around these craft that they're not even touching the water. They're just going through the water with ease because of that at a high rate of speed. So that's where we need to be looking. That's the place you want to hide now if you want to hide anything. And that's why there's all this massive grab for water right now. I mean, look at the Chinese. They're building all these little islands. We've got, our people are down in Antarctica, and now there's a big land grab, not only a land grab, but mostly a water grab, underwater rights by the Russians for the Arctic. So they're going after thousands of miles. They've petitioned the UN for thousands of miles of water. They're saying, well, it's for resources. What is this for? No, everybody is hiding underwater. Great hiding place. It's just a matter of having to be able to deal with the elements, which are pretty tough because just pressure. That's a reason, too, why we're limited to 130 feet. When you go down 130 feet, then you have to deal with the pressure of coming up. And if you go down too much lower than that, when I went down, it was, I believe, 145. I needed an extra 12 minutes of a safety stop at 15 feet before I could come to the surface. So they're tough elements, but we've been able to deal with them for a long time.
Do you think there are underwater alien cities, much like we saw on the movie The Abyss back in the early 90s? Or do you think that's maybe a little too romantic to think that, Mr. and Mrs. Alien have built a water dome underneath so that way they could check us out and fly out anytime that they want?
I think it's more likely if there are underwater alien bases that would be maybe something the size of a mothership. Go in, take something big, put it underwater, and if for some reason you have to move it, it's easily moved. If it's discovered, yeah, you could, whip off, cross the ocean really quick, put it someplace else, or come out of the water and go somewhere else. But I don't see them actually building cities. But I would say absolutely, there's in the depths of our oceans, there's a very, very, very strong possibility there's at least one, if not more, motherships under there, and that these craft are coming in and out of the water and going back down there, using that as a base. And we also have bases underwater. That's come out. WikiLeaks has even talked about that, about the bases that they're building underwater. Part of that's in my presentation.
Where would they be located? Do you think they're located just off the Pacific near San Diego? I love the Ron Burgundy pronunciation of that, San Diego. Or San Diego, much like, what we have heard in some sort of briefings or people stating that there are bases somewhere around the Catalina Islands or someplace like that. Because here I'm thinking, if I'm an alien and I'm wanting a base on Earth, I'm going someplace deep in the Pacific, or better yet, the Atlantic. And if I want warmth, I'll head over to the Indian Ocean. I'm staying away from the Arctic. Way too cold up there. I know that.
Oh, I don't know. Look at space. If you can deal with the elements there, it doesn't matter. Once you're underwater, you're underwater. If you're in some type of a craft that's, you've landed down there, you're doing your research, you're coming in and out of it. It doesn't matter if the water is 90 degrees or minus 90 degrees, as long as your craft is capable of handling the pressure and the elements. But, from the research I did, I did a different presentation on that. It seems like there's something that's around the Catalina Island area, something in there. There's a lot of activity that's been coming in. In fact, 1947, July 1947, when all that was going on in Roswell, there were craft that were seen flying by military people flying over Catalina Island in California. There's also Puerto Rico around in that area. You've got these deep trenches. I believe something around the Baltic Sea. There were some reports. I did some research from it was a Russian. There's actually Russian UFO website, UFO Investigators, and the Russian research. Some of these reports were talking about how there were some Russian military, some Navy divers that were underwater that encountered some alien beings, and there was a battle, and several of these Russians were killed. So there's something going on in the Baltic. I believe there's also, someplace around. There's also activity going around Ireland in that area. There's just you name it, just pretty much. Well, outside of Japan, they have some activity there. There's the place to look is where there is a lot of UFO activity that's coming in and out of the water. But primarily in this area would be Puerto Rico. It's very, very active.
I always look at it from a Canadian standpoint, where I feel that Shag Harbor is one of the most underrated sightings, reports. It has everything. It has the military, the Canadian police, the American police on their side who are investigating it. And yet it's never really talked about for USOs, or even in the same type of category as, say, something like Roswell was. Combined with the fact that you are a diver, you look into USOs, and your research with Roswell, are we ripping off ufologists and people looking to learn about this research by not bringing up the true facts of Shag Harbor?
Well, a lot more came out than anybody realizes. I forgot exactly. So the Canadian military did declare it a UFO. They did investigate it. There was some type of yellow foam that was on the top of the water that I don't guess anybody ever grabbed a sample of. We know that a craft, from what I understand, a craft was seen that something hit the water and went in, and it moved a few miles down the coast. There was supposedly another craft that went down and was next to it, and divers American and Canadian divers were watching these alien beings repair the one ship, and eventually, well, I believe a Russian submarine came into the area, and when it did, these two craft took off. I believe all this took place somewhere around, I haven't read on this in a while, I believe it's somewhere around 2 weeks, wasn't it? Maybe not that long, but it was several days they were underwater right there, and it is officially listed as a UFO sighting. But the thing is that when I did my research on that, yeah, I'm very familiar with that. It's one of the most fantastic underwater sightings in history. But I don't believe there's a base there. That was just a craft that had some kind of mechanical problems, and another one that came and they made repairs and they left. And we were fortunate enough, the military was fortunate enough to witness what was going on, but I don't think they're ever going to let us know what they actually saw.
No. And yet it's amazing because that one had so many witnesses, both civilian, military, paramilitary, and the police. It had everyone involved. And yet it just seems like, I guess what I'm saying when I look at this, and I want to get into your Roswell stuff too, because you've done some amazing research there. I guess when I look at Roswell as the piece de resistance when it comes to UFO crash sites, and then we put in Shag Harbor, or even the fact that majority of UFO people do not seem to recognize or have never heard of the second crash at San Augustine, the day of Roswell, it makes me wonder why we as researchers, for the most part, are holding back on some amazing stories to focus on the ones that everybody's already investigated.
Well, that's kind of interesting that you said that. Well, first of all, Shag Harbor, it was in the news. I mean, and it was a big story at the time. But there's something about human nature to where, they lose their interest and move on. And it's still there, and it's still a fantastic sighting. But I think the difference between Shag Harbor and Roswell is the craft left. The only physical trace evidence he had was this yellow foam, and I'm not sure if anybody gathered any of that. But with Roswell, you've got an actual craft, you've got beings, you've got military people. You had this released to the public, and then, then redacted after that. And as far as the Plains of St. Augustine, I got a piece of that. Chuck Wade gave me a piece. He said he was making earrings. I met him at a conference in Eureka Springs, and he'd made earrings for, I believe he said, his granddaughter. And he made me this necklace, which was fantastic. It's, I don't know, I guess about an inch by maybe about an inch by a quarter of an inch. It just looks like a meteor piece, but it's an actual, he said, piece of the craft. And so I was wearing it to my MUFON meeting, and I was all excited. I thought, this is great. Chuck Wade gave me this. And I started to talk on my presentation, and I leaned over my computer, and my computer totally just went dead. I lost the screen on my computer just out. And our chief investigator, Joe Palermo, he said, did you notice that when you leaned over with that piece that it just took out your computer? He said, get that darn thing off your neck. And I thought, oh my gosh, I need to call Chuck and tell him to get those earrings out of his, it never dawned on me. Stupid on my part. I'm just thinking this is really cool. It's this piece of this craft. Yeah, there's a lot that goes on that we don't even know. And here, I have it now safely tucked away. But I told Chuck Wade, I said, get those earrings off of your granddaughter's ears. You have no idea what this, it took out my computer. So, and in fact, we did analyze a piece of the debris from the Plains of St. Augustine that Chuck Wade is the primary investigator on that. And it came out with the same molecular properties, I guess, really pure in aluminum, a little bit of silicon. And the dirt particles, just the dirt particles collect titanium. Just odd. But it came out the same way as the piece that we found, or the pieces that we found, or piece we found in Roswell.
I understand that, but why, after all the years, and we're going on 70 71 years almost here. Why are so many UFO investigators still so hot to trot on Roswell? Yet I think there was better evidence at San Augustine, and yet half of them don't even know about it. Are they just not doing the research, or are they still looking after the romance that they're going to be the one who breaks something that's never been broken before in 71 years of Roswell?
I think the difference was that Chuck Wade went in there and just did a dig. He didn't do an official archaeology dig. And when you do something like that, you don't have credible documentation for what you've pulled up. They said there was no way to prove that what he had came from this actual site. And, you know, I'm kind of with you on this. I think there should be a lot of people out there investigating that. But the way I met Chuck Wade, my brother Chug Zukowski and I happened to be at the Roswell UFO Museum, and Chuck Wade walked in, and I believe it was Don Schmidt and Tom Carey and some other people on the stage, and he says, I've actually got pieces of debris. And they said, oh, okay, just drop them by later. They just kind of blew him off. And so he got his feelings a little hurt, and I mean, they were in the middle of speaking. It really wasn't the appropriate time for him to do that. But he turned around and walked out, and we looked at each other, my brother and I, we immediately jumped up and followed him and talked to him about this. He gave us all this research on what he had done. He physically documented everything himself on where he had found it, all his research, and showed us all these pieces. And then eventually, he did give me a piece. He gave Chuck a piece. So I don't know if it's just the whole romance of Roswell, it's all centered around the museum, and that's where the base is, and that's where I believe that's where the major crash was, that's where the beings were, and that type of thing, that there was more evidence found in Roswell, and maybe the whole hype of Roswell, that it just kind of overshadowed the other.
I interviewed Gerald Anderson, who was 5 years old at that time when he and his dad went looking for agates with his cousin and uncle and brother when they came across this craft. Now, at 5 years old, a lot of people, including Stanton Friedman, have said, oh, you can't remember squat at 5 years old. But when you see something like that, I call BS on it. And that's where, we get the, and I love Stanton, and he'll be on this show on Thursday, but that's where you get a lot of these researchers who have never had the experience, not understanding the trauma that it causes even at 5 years old. And here we have this guy, one of the only living people who has come out to say, I touched an extraterrestrial. I touched a crash site. I touched a UFO. And nobody really wants to deal with the dude. His story comes out. People like Art Campbell believe him. There are others who say he is 100% correct. All his evidence kind of correlates with what has been found and what was written down on the story, and yet he's a nobody. He could be as popular in this field as Travis Walton. Now, I'll be honest with you, it's a couple of years since I've actually talked to the man. I don't even know if he's still alive. That's how silent we are on this. And it just feels kind of wrong that we have this secondary crash site with an eyewitness who touched an alien and this spacecraft, can tell you what it feels like. And his story is never changed. And yet we're silent.
Yeah, that's a shame. And I think it probably lies on the fault of the original investigator that didn't take it serious. I mean, I take everything that I hear serious, even a hoax, until I find out it's a hoax. But you have to take all this serious, and maybe it wasn't investigated enough. I don't know, that's a tragedy. It really is. Because like you said, you're not even sure if this gentleman is still alive, and there's experience and information that are lost. There should have been a whole entire book written on his experience.
Exactly, there should have. And that's prime evidence that we, as a field of ufologists and researchers, have really dropped the ball on.
Yes.
And now I believe Gerald will be around, if he's still alive, around 75, 76 years old. I mean, this is incredulous and ridiculous that this field would ignore this man.
Well, you need to hunt him down, get him on your show.
Well, I already have. I know he hasn't been on the other shows. I know that for a fact. I've had him on twice.
Oh, well, I apologize. I missed him.
Oh, that's quite all right. We're still new and growing. I'm okay with that. I'm still very much okay with that. But we've had him on twice. But, I mean, the idea behind it, where we have everybody so, and pardon the term, horny about Roswell, and yet nobody talks San Augustine, I think that's laughable.
Yeah, and it's a shame because Chuck Wade, I mean, no one takes him serious. And I haven't even seen Chuck in a while. He was in Roswell every year for a while. My brother and I would go every year, maybe 2-3 times a year. And he was a regular fixture there, and I haven't seen him in a while. I don't know if he finally just got tired of being laughed away, or... And I don't understand why no one, I'm like you, why no one took that other site serious. Well, my brother and I absolutely did.
I mean, they were finding crash findings, 3-4 feet in, because the U.S. military rushed the cleanup on that one. Even Stanton Friedman has said that.
Mm.
Right? I don't know. Well, I just kind of look at it, Debbie, as we are a prime field that is continually begging for mainstream attention and mainstream purpose and credibility, yet we always seem to find a way to step on our own feet, to trip on our shoelaces, whatever cliche you want to use. I think it's funny.
Yeah, there's a lot that's been missed. There's, I think we need to pay more attention to these satellite images. There's a lot of people now that are trying to write all these satellite images off that are in the water as being part of the process of putting the film together. It's part of the, I'm not exactly sure how they described it, but it was just the process of putting these sections that one picture isn't, a picture taken isn't just one, it's like sections of pictures. But some of the things that are seen underwater, I mean, some of the water, I mean, the visibility is incredible. I mean, I was diving in Cozumel, and I know it was at 100 feet deep, and I could see the water moving back and forth on top, and I had at least 100-foot visibility. So, if something's from a satellite looking down, they can see the shadow of things underwater. But everybody's just writing that off. They're saying, well, no, it's this just, part of an anomaly from the process of taking the picture. No, there's some type of basis or something. The same type of thing, like there was something off of Malibu that was kind of wrote off as explainable, except I want to know why the exact same thing is off the coast of Japan. If it's a natural phenomenon, it's happened twice. That's pretty rare. I think there's a lot that we're too easily discouraged about things. It takes someone to be really diligent and pick a subject and go for it. And I'm so busy in Missouri that I barely have time for Roswell anymore.
No, and I can appreciate that because you've already done the work, you've done the research, you know about the second crash site. But I've had people on this show who've done documentaries on Roswell who'd never heard of San Augustine, never heard of it. And to me, as someone who sits in this chair, that absolutely kills the credibility of it.
Well, there was a sighting in April, I believe April of 1941 in Cape Girardeau, Missouri, where there was a crash and one being alive. I think there were 2 dead, 1 alive. No one even hears about that either.
I'm going to admit that's a first for me. Tell us about that one. No, I've never heard that. Please fill me in.
Oh, Cape Girardeau, and I believe it was investigated really thoroughly by Ryan Woods. This craft apparently came down in 1941, Cape Girardeau, Missouri, exactly 90 miles south of me on the highway. They found one being that was alive, and they shot it and killed it. There was some Polaroid pictures, apparently, of these two guys that shot it, holding it up by its long arms. They had the Reverend, I believe it was Reverend Huffman from the Red Star, I believe, Baptist Church. I know it was a Red Star Church, came over and did last rites on it. They gave him a copy of the Polaroid picture that he put in a Bible. He passed away a few years later, but for a while, his daughter was talking about it. She said that the picture ended up disappearing from the house, but she had remembered seeing it as a little girl, the picture of this alien being. They had buried this alien being. I guess I'm pretty sure there were three of them, but I know that the one that they had killed, they had buried it. There was a tombstone there for a while, and they had so many people that were coming over visiting it, they finally took away the tombstone. They had I believe it was UFO Hunters, had a special on it where they were trying to figure out where it was by an old picture of the tombstone, measuring it out from a tree. They're not sure if they've moved the body or if they just took away the tombstone and the body's still there. I mean, this is a story that people in Missouri know about, and it was briefly investigated, but, we got here in Missouri, we have an alien that's buried, and nobody in town wants to talk about it.
Oh, I live in a small town where that's exactly the situation, because I don't know if you've ever heard the Miriam Delicato abduction case here in British Columbia. But that happened, this year will be the 30th anniversary of that, and it happened just outside, like literally a mile outside of my community. And people here who have lived in this community for 30 plus years, who know about it, they are absolutely silent about it. Don't even want to talk about it. They are just not interested at all. And then some weirdo radio guy moves to town 3 years ago, I'll take credit for that, and says, hey, let's put a monument up there for this. Yeah, you can imagine how well that's going over.
You're the favorite son, huh?
We can't even put it this way, my town is so backwards, we can't even come together on building a swimming pool that has been asked for by citizens for the last 50 years. That's how ass backwards my community is.
I live in a great little town, so I can't complain. I was very, very impressed. My oldest grandchild graduated. She graduated from high school, and I was very, very impressed that the two area high schools got together in the auditorium of one of them and had a baccalaureate, which was basically an hour of inspiration, passages from the Bible and just inspirational stories on how they turned their lives around by teachers. And I thought, this is just incredible that a couple small towns, that they would get together and do this, that, you're totally supposed to take religion and everything out of schools. And I just thought it was, I'm proud to live in an area where there's still folks out here that have values, and they still cherish their values and respect them. And so I was shocked and impressed at the same time. I'm lucky I live in a nice little Jefferson County, Missouri, a nice, very nice neighborhood. One of those where if your car breaks down, there's somebody right there. There's three people right there to help you.
That's like here, too. I think they're just naive. Canadians are still quite naive about the whole UFO thing. They'll accept Bigfoot. For some reason, especially here in British Columbia, they'll accept Bigfoot. But aliens abducting people on the highway a kilometer out of town? Oh, hell no. We don't do that. Now, let's vote in an indoor soccer field over a pool that's been... Oh, it's ridiculous. Anyhow, moving on. It's getting way too political for old Davy Boy here.
Right,
we got about 10 minutes before we got to go to break here. So okay. I want to get into Roswell with you. What was your fascination with Roswell, and why did it mean so much to you in order to do as much studying as you did on that?
Well, it was kind of funny. back in 1999, my brother lives in Colorado. Again, I live in Missouri. Our family live in California. And I believe it was 1999, we decided to go out and have a family reunion, Thanksgiving. We celebrated the Tuesday before Thanksgiving, which naturally is on Thursday. And my brother and I had just written everything on Roswell. I was fascinated with it because, it's got everything. It's got aliens, it's got craft, it's got military that's reported, it's got the cover-up, it's got the whole thing, the whole picture. And it's all, very publicized. And found out that my brother Chuck was also involved in Roswell, not only had been investigating, was there. And so that's kind of how it had happened. The two of us got together, decided to pull our money resources, went down. That was in November. We were there the following Memorial weekend, and then we went back 4th of July, and then we went back Labor Day. And we were doing this every year. We would go there, and we'd go to Hooper, Colorado. There's a UFO watchtower over there, and then we would head to Roswell. And that's kind of how it got started. It was the fascination of such a publicized case, and a lot of it having to do with Stanton Friedman. And, I had bought his books. That's how it got started, just the fascination of it going into town, and then deciding, that we were going to actually start investigating. And we were running into people who had seen the craft, who, military people that are still in the area, witnesses. And it kind of grew from there. Then we got invited. Luckily, we got invited on the 2002 archaeology dig. I'm not sure how much more time I have, but quick story. We blew off the alien ball and decided to go up on the hill, this overlook of Roswell. We were up there from about 9 o'clock at night till about 3 o'clock in the morning. The next day, we went into the museum, and there was Tom Schmidt and Don Carey. Tom Carey and Don Schmidt were talking about a triangle-shaped craft that had dropped a cow in the highway, and the cow had been mutilated. And we said, they said it happened from there. And we said, that didn't happen. And Don said, how do you know this didn't happen? And I said, we were there. And he goes, well, what were you doing up there? And I said, well, we're in Roswell. We're going to go in an alien ball, and we're going to go overlook the city and hope we can see UFOs. I mean, we were, this is what we were doing. And he said, well, who are you guys? And we told him we were independent investigators. I had just joined MUFON, and he said, you want to go on the dig? And that's how we got involved that deeply in the 2002 dig. Right place, right time.
Sometimes you just got to be lucky.
Right, pretty much.
When you got there, were you as familiar with that crash site and what had happened that day as you felt you should have been, or were you feeling a little bit naked when it came to knowledge of the crash?
No, I had researched it so much. I knew about the area. We went in. We quickly became friends with Walter Hott, the information officer, and Glenn Dennis, who was the mortician that they had asked for small coffins. Went in and met the two gentlemen. They invited us into their office and gave us, after we got talking for a while, they gave us GPS readings, and my brother and I ran to Walmart real quick, got a cooler and some bottles of water and knee pads, and took off and went out there and went to 2 of the 3 sites. They gave us the GPS for the Corn site, the Ragsdale site, and the debris field. So long before, a year or so before we ever went on the first archaeology dig, Chuck and I had already been out there.
70 years later, 50 years later, whatever this was, when you started going out there for this dig, were you expecting to find anything of significance, considering that the U.S. Army at that time, or the Army Air Force that was based there, had really done almost a very clean and thorough job of finding or of tracking down any evidence or any pieces of this craft?
Oh, we were on a mission. We were going to find something. They had us digging knee deep, which was in Jurassic, depth. And we talked to the lead archaeologist and found out that it was more like 10 centimeters, which basically like 4 inches would be dirt from 1947. We stayed an extra couple days, longer than the rest of the people. And the lead archaeologist, Dr. Dolman, helped lined up a strip dig for us, and that's where we found a lot of additional, including the silver metallic piece that we found was in the strip dig. but we were bound and determined to find something because we knew it was there. I think that when this happened, there was a electrical storm with wind going on. I mean, this debris, from what we were told, spread over a quarter of a mile. They were using metal detectors that you could buy a better metal detector now at Walmart than you could have bought, than they were using then. They were only checking down just, low enough in the dirt or deep enough in the dirt. Just these metal detectors were to detect landmines. So there were things that went down in there. They went down in sinkholes. They were in holes, rabbit holes. They blew a quarter of a mile. We knew they couldn't have found everything. And they're still finding pieces out there. There are still sightings that are happening out there. And during my presentation, I'll talk about the one that my brother Chuck and I had when we were out there in 2016. So there was a 16 till 2017. Let's see, this is 2007. Yeah, 2016. We had a sighting out there. So, yeah, we absolutely, when we went out there, we thought we're on a mission. We're going to find something. And it surprised me a little bit, but we actually did.
How do you know it's alien material rather than, say, somebody whose Rust Bucket 1964 pickup had actually dropped a few pieces along the way? Maybe a bumper or a catalytic converter back in the day.
Oh, this is out in the middle of nowhere. And, they're talking now about trying to put trails and stuff out there. Back there, it took hours and hours. I mean, it takes us 75 minutes to get out there from Roswell. And the road conditions are horrid. Some of the places you have to drive off and around because the ruts are so deep. There's nobody out there. It's BLM property, Bureau of Land Management. We were digging down, at 5, 6, 7 inches down into the dirt. So, I mean, this stuff has been there for a while. And when you pull up out in the middle of nowhere, cow pastures, where everything is just flat. I mean, seriously, if you have to use the restroom, there isn't even a cactus to hide behind. There is nothing. You have to open a car door and hide and do your business or wait, an entire day. That's why they had Johnny on the spots out there for the digs. So, I mean, this is flat territory. When you find something that's triangle-shaped, silver metallic, it's someplace, like the archaeologist told us, you're looking for something that shouldn't be here, that's out of place. This was definitely out of place. And it was also found that deep from 1947. We didn't use aluminum. We barely started using aluminum, and Shirley didn't use aluminum that was pure, almost completely pure aluminum with a little bit of silicon. It's not something you would have found in 1947.
Do you analyze the pieces that you find?
My brother he worked at the time for a company that had a scope that could go down several, microns. And then, like I was telling before the last break that we had, there's at the end, Bigelow analyzed it. And when you analyze something that's, you compare what you have with another known alloy. And it came up unknown alloy that was in this. Well, there shouldn't be any unknown alloys if you're with Bigelow Industries, because he's got an infinite amount of resources, which if there's an alloy out there, he's got something to compare to. What they had didn't compare to anything. So it came up with unknown alloy, which we thought it was kind of fun because about 2 years later, they came up with that inflatable craft. I guess it's an inflatable escape craft or bubble or something that they were going to use up on the shuttle. And we thought, wonder where he got that from. Wonder if it had a coincidence. Probably. But we thought it was interesting.
We're down to about 1 minute or 2 minutes before we need to go to break here. What do you think the biggest part that you could still find in Roswell is? Are you going to find a steering wheel, a flux capacitor?
No, what the pieces that they're finding, and there's still a gentleman down there named Frank. I apologize, I can't remember his last name, but still, he's an archaeologist. Everything is thumb size and smaller. Most everything is about half the size of a woman's pinky finger. They're small pieces. The large pieces were pretty well found. The pieces were found by Mac Brazel's brother, I believe, a couple years after the fact, and the military came in and took them. So I think Dee Proctor, one of the children that was out there, he found pieces. So the big pieces are, I believe, long gone, but there's still little fragments that are left. They're still finding them.
I'd like to find something like that, except up here.
If you do, you got to turn it in. It's property of Bureau of Land Management. Anything out there, if
it's in Canada, they'll never know. They will never know.
I'm not telling.
I'm not telling either. And for those from CSIS or the RCMP who are listening, I don't know where any crash sites are. I wish I did. I really wish I did. I'm not that lucky. I'm not that guy. Just not that guy. I'm so excited you're going to be with us for another 30 minutes, Debbie. It is absolutely a blast talking with you tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. We're going to get more into UFOs, I think, because I want to know what you think they are. I really do. I think that's going to be fun. What does Debbie Ziegelmeyer? Imagine yourself laying on like a UFO shrink's couch. Now, Debbie, what is it you think the UFOs are? We're going to get into that. We're going to get into that and so much more. Debbie Ziegelmeyer will be speaking at the Alien Cosmic Expo coming up June 22nd to 24th in Toronto, Ontario. So if you're in New York, you're in Ontario, you're in Michigan, hell, we'll even throw Wisconsin, Rhode Island, Maine in there as well. Head on over to Toronto for the Alien Cosmic Expo. Debbie will be joined by people like Grant Cameron, Linda Moulton Howe, Stu Bundy, Steve Bassett, and so many more talented individuals at this conference. So make sure you check it on out. We got hour number 3 coming up right after this. Are you tired of being blocked, shadow banned, or placed in jail for simply posting your thoughts on social media? Social Media Freedom can take care of that for you. Social Media Freedom is the newest and one of the best free new apps that allows you the freedom to post what you want, when you want. It takes seconds to download from your app store. Come join the tribe at Social Media Freedom. It's time to set yourself free.
The first annual Caribou Paracon is happening September 28th to 30th in the 108 Mile Ranch, British Columbia. Brought to you by the Canadian Society of Questers and Spaced Out Radio. Come listen to our featured speaker, Grant Cameron, along with Elizabeth Anglin, Paisley Town, Mike Moran, Eric Cooper, and more. It's a 3-day supernatural adventure at the Spruce Hills Resort and Spa. Tickets for the weekend are $150 Canadian. The Caribou Paracon, celebrating everything paranormal.
A timepiece is a reflection of who you are, and what better way to show off the real you than with an Escape watch? Escape is a lifestyle brand accessorizing your days and nights. Choose to escape and create the life of discovery that you deserve. Dream, play, unite with your own personalized Escape watch. Head to escapewatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
We are lighting the void on Saturday nights on Spaced Out Radio. Hey, this is Joe Roop, and I'm hanging out in SOR headquarters every Saturday night, bringing you the latest news when it comes to the weird and strange. Bigfoot, occult, UFOs, ghosts, and everything in between, I got you covered. You can tune in to SpacedOutRadio.com starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time. Come travel into the void with us on Spaced Out Saturdays.
Not ready for bed on Saturday night? Right after Spaced Out Saturdays, hop on over to S4 with Corey Ruiz and me, Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal. With S4, there are no limits to what we try and uncover. From government conspiracies to helping clean up the paranormal, no topic is safe on S4. We get to the heart of the matter. of the subjects you want to learn more about. So tune in on S4 starting at midnight Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern, only on spacedoutradio.com.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
The Call of the Wild is in Vancouver. The Moose Vancouver is one of the hottest bars and restaurants in the city. Open until 2 a.m. nightly, the Moose will rock you like a hurricane all night long. Great food with everything on the menu at $6.95 near the corner of Nelson and Granville. Get your horns up and come rock with us. The Moose Vancouver, the official rocking bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
This is Eric Markham, news editor for the Spaced Out Radio's The Encounter Online. We have put together a great team of writers and journalists from all over the world to bring you top-quality paranormal stories, from alien encounters to the latest conspiracies. You won't find any of that fake news here. True stories and top-notch reporting as we look to bring these experiences to the mainstream. The Encounter Online, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Do you want to know the truth? Do UFOs exist? Are aliens real? Are the governments hiding the biggest secret in history? We're UFO seekers, and we're on a hunt for the truth. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow along with us as we journey across the United States, visiting UFO hotspots and alien hotspots, trying to document the UFO phenomenon. Catch us on Spaced Out Radio every third Monday of the month as we discuss Area 51, UFOs, and more. And also, don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their story.
From the mile-high state of Colorado, sharing our signal around the world, I invite you to Spaced Out Sundays. Hi, I'm Tessa Nicole Thomas, and I'm closing out the week by taking you on a paranormal journey to the world of the weird. Ghosts, aliens, psychic phenomena, I will hit it all in your questions too. So let us highlight the paranormal for you. So come join me for Spaced Out Sundays starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, 12 a.m. Eastern, only at spacedoutradio.com.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and hashtag Spaced Out Radio, and on Facebook Spaced Out Radio Show. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back to the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Great to have you with us. Tomorrow night on the program, we had to make a scheduling change. Originally, Jim Thomas was going to join us and talk about his ET experiences. However, due to a loss of a friend, his best friend of 50 years, we're going to postpone that, and we're going to bring on Olaf Phillips starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern time. We'll get into secret space program, UFOs, whatever else weird and strange comes up. That's what we will get into, and I hope you tune on in because Olaf is a good friend of this show, and always something strange happens when he's on the air. We welcome back everyone listening in on the SOR radio network, including the Fringe FM. And don't forget, you can check out our archives at youtube.com/spaced out radio. I need a favor, though. I need you to hit that subscribe button. I would really appreciate that. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Fanfaronade. Fanfaronade is your password. Make sure you use it wisely, Space Travelers, as Bill sets a password each and every night right here on the mighty SOR. Now, if you want to follow us on our website, spacedoutradio.com, we got a plethora of features for you. Rock out to some Bumblefoot, shop at our Spaced Out Radio store, read up on the encounter online, or watch great videos from UFO seekers, and so much more. For the final time tonight, we introduce Debbie Ziegelmeyer. She is speaking at the Alien Cosmic Expo, June 22nd to 24th in Toronto, Ontario. So we highly suggest if you're in the area to check on that event, because it's going to be absolutely fantastic. She's been with MUFON for more than 2 decades. She is a ufologist. She is a diver dealing in underwater events and sharks and megalodon and all sorts of freaky things that want to kill you in the water. Debbie, welcome back.
Hi, thank you for having me.
I bring up megalodon because my 4-year-old son is addicted to megalodon. Addicted.
Oh, really?
Yes. Yes. So I always have to bring up megalodon anytime I get a chance. It has to be kind of hard to dive in the ocean if you live in Missouri.
No, that's what cruises are for.
I get you.
I'm going on a cruise in September, and I'll be diving in Roatan, Honduras.
Oh, nice. What do you do if a great white or a mako shark comes up to you?
Well, there really aren't any gray whites in that area, but the sharks, I'm not afraid of sharks. They're more afraid of you. If you take a camera and you try and point it and go toward the shark, it's going to take off. What's scary are those great big barracuda. I've been in the midst of a school of barracuda that were as big as me, and they have these big teeth, and they're unpredictable. So, sharks don't bother me.
Yeah, not this guy, man. I'm not, as I've said many a time, I'm a meal, not an appetizer. I'm a meal. I ain't going by the sharks. It's just so much safer to stay out of the water if you're old Davy here.
If you're underwater, you're better off than being on top of the water, snorkeling or surfing or anything. They don't mistake you for something else.
This is true.
Yep.
One of these days, though, I will conquer my fear. I do want to go into a cage where great whites are. I do want to conquer that fear. I will do it. I don't know when. It may be in like 3 lifetimes from now, because I am a reincarnation kind of guy. All right, but I am going to go and do that one time.
You may be the shark.
You never know. You never know. I'm coming back as Megalodon, a gumless or teethless Megalodon. I'm going to be over there going through the water trying to gum everything to death. But that's okay. Let's move on. Let's move on here. UFOs. What do you think they are? Do you think they are ours, like many in the secret space program believe that they are, like the TR-3B black triangles? Or do you think we are actually being visited by aliens from outer space?
I think both. Depending on the area that you're in, we have Whiteman Air Force Base here, of course. So we've got the stealth bombers. The base is probably 4 hours from me, going west. We also have Scott Air Force Base. There's a lot of what they see is refueling, and it looks pretty. Pretty interesting when you've got planes up there and one meets with the other and they're refueling, and you can see all these, different light patterns and separations. But then again, you've got reports of craft back from the 1800s. So you've also got animal mutilations back in the 1800s. So you've got pictoglyphs with what look like craft from Star Wars. Drawn, by ancient Native Americans. So there's both, obviously both. And I'm thinking, depending on your area, I know I've seen some things that unless we've got, which we obviously do have a secret space program, I saw a pattern of craft come in and do a couple years ago and do something that I didn't think we had the capability to do. So, yep, a little bit of both. Where they come from, I don't know. That's anybody's guess. I've heard Alpha Centauri. I've heard from Orion, the constellation Orion. They come from right around Orion's belt. Sirius. I don't know. That's the $1 million question, isn't it?
Well, it is the $1 million question, and I guess what it comes down to is whether or not we are actually being visited. I personally think we are. I've seen aliens, so I'm a believer. I believe that it is here, and they are here, and they are checking us out. Some are good, some are bad, some are just indifferent and doing their own job, whatever it might be. I think they're like humans that way. But on the flip side, you know, how do we tell? I mean, going by personal experience, when somebody says, you know, I've got some Zeta Reticuli who I am communicating with from 48,000 light years away, I do have a hard time in believing that.
Yeah, that's pretty hard to believe. It's if they've got, I mean, we go more for trace evidence. There's so many of us in Missouri that are investigators. We all have our expertise. We have someone who's oh, are you still there? Oh, wait a minute.
I sure am. I hear you.
Let's see. Oh, no.
Do you have me? We have you.
Remind me later. I was trying to do a middle of the night update and go, I'm going to restart your computer.
Yeah.
Back off.
Gotta love Microsoft.
We have experts in everything. I have someone who's an expert in Sasquatch, Bigfoot, that does those investigations. Joe Palermo. Dana West investigates triangle-shaped craft, especially around this area. And then we have Margie Kay, our assistant state director, and she investigates abductions. So we have people that are that have different expertise. Mine is mostly in landing sites, trace evidence, craft. So, you know, I've seen landing sites. I've had a Geiger counter on a landing site, and you know, unfortunately, not had a reaction, but I had a false north on my compass, and so I got a better Geiger counter. I've seen enough trace evidence. We've taken, we have Lynn Mann. She's our chief lab technician. Most people don't know that, but Missouri, MUFON, is the only state that has their own lab. We have our own research lab to investigate trace evidence. And we are open to anybody, you know, anybody from MUFON, any of the state directors or district directors, I guess, or, you know, even in Canada, if you have something there, you know, you're MUFON Canada, you're welcome to send something over, have your trace evidence investigated. We're kind of a level 1 lab. And so if there's something that's unidentified, you know, seriously unidentified, something that needs further, to be analyzed further, than it's sent to the home office at MUFON. But that's kind of what I do. And I wouldn't be that serious about financing a lab if I didn't believe that there was something out there that was otherworldly, that's visiting us, and has been for years.
So out of all the reports you have done over 25 years, how many do you think are credible? Real stories of people either getting abducted or having close encounters where they can't explain and that it's absolutely baffled you. Let's say out of your top 100 cases, or out of 100 cases, how many would be, you know, mystifying, not have any type of human answer to them?
I'd say about probably 10 to 12%, but then if I knew what the government had, that would probably be lowered more to be maybe 5 or 6%. That just easily 6%. There's absolutely no way that this is anything that's from this earth or was built by anybody on this earth. And I'd say just in the state of Missouri, personally in the state of Missouri, because we have a long history of UFO sightings starting back in the 70s with Piedmont and what went on there. So very easily 6%. And what's scary is there shouldn't be even 1%. There shouldn't be 0.5%. We should know what's going on, and it's scary that our government does not. I wouldn't doubt if our government isn't looking to see what MUFON does, probably looking on our website and getting information from us, you know.
Or you could just be giving it to Bigelow.
Oh, well, maybe they're passing it on to him. I have, you know, whatever our government does, that's, you know, to be seen. But I wouldn't doubt if the government isn't trying to find out what's on there and looking through our site and trying to find out, you know, for themselves. I mean, we're getting the reports, they aren't. And so I wouldn't doubt if they're looking at our site and trying to find out what's out there. The only complaint I have is I think I had to get paid. You know, I mean, if I'm going to do the work, I think the government should shoot me a little bit of a check or something, you know.
Well, obviously, you got the wrong end of that Bigelow deal when he bought into MUFON then.
Yeah, well, yeah, that didn't last a whole long time. It was just, you know, it was one of those marriages that just didn't work out real well.
True that. True enough. When you were investigating UFOs, or when you are investigating UFOs, what are some of the telltale signs you look for as to whether or not someone's trying to just pull the wool over your eyes?
Well, the first thing I look for, you know, they tell me, okay, this is what I saw, this part of the sky, at this time of day. And the first thing I do is go online, and there's a site called Heavens Above. It will tell you where all the satellites are, where the planets are, but mostly where all the satellites are, the International Space Station. And once you rule that out, and you look at, I have a Starry Night program, and I can tell I know where all the stars are, where all the planets are. And then once I rule that out, then I start looking at other websites, and, you know, mostly Peter Davenport's National UFO Recording Center, and see if anybody else has reported anything. Then, you know, there's the time, there's the movement, there's a placement, there's other reports through MUFON. And we run this just like a police investigation. And I have one right now where someone says, well, they were in a plane and they saw this plane go by. Well, what I found was that when I was on one of the airline flights, they had a little computer on the seat behind me. There was a screen, and I could follow along and see where my flight was, and I could see it. You know, just put it on your flight, and it was showing what our altitude was and how many miles an hour we were traveling. So I took pictures of all that, so I know that a commercial airline flies at about 38,000 feet at about 544 miles an hour. You know, so if someone tells me, okay, well, I saw this thing and it came by and it shot across the sky and it made it across the sky in about a second, you know, we've got something there. So that's kind of what it is. You take your evidence, you take experience, and you rule out everything. And when you can't, once you've ruled everything out, you've got an unknown. You know, you don't know where to go from there, especially, well, one really quick one was, I can tell you the exact date, April 22nd of 2016. I was down south at our lake lot, and I was showing my son-in-law, it was about 9:30 at night, it was dark, showing my daughter and my son-in-law the stars. We'd had a long day at the lake and looking up at the night sky, and he said, what's that? And it was these a formation, like a square formation of 4 stars in a formation. And they just kept getting brighter and brighter and brighter, coming from outer atmosphere inward. And I said, well, that's like a square, 4. And they hit a certain part of the atmosphere and then just quickly split in 4 different directions at a high rate of speed. Well, I'm out for every meteor shower, and I have never seen anything like that. That was not a meteor shower. That was something that came into our atmosphere, 4 craft, in formation, took off in 4 different directions. I have no idea what that was. I'd say, you know, and he started jumping around and screaming and hollering, and this is a big firefighter. And he said, what was that? I have no idea. So I think a lot of his experience ruling out things, and it's pretty much, how you run an investigation.
Do you still find that after all this time that people are still trying to pull the wool over your eyes as an investigator? And if so, what are some of the hints or tip-offs that people give you where they're just, trying to cause some BS?
Oh, they're so obvious anymore. There'll be somebody that says that they've, we get very few. I may get between 200 and 300 sightings in Missouri a year, and we may have 2 hoaxes. The people that pull the hoaxes are maybe the same kind of people, and once, they know that we know what they're up to, they don't try anymore. It's kind of frivolous to do. But I get more people that just know for sure that they've seen something, and it's Venus or Jupiter. I mean, I had one person who just said, yes, there's this bright star, and I know that it was in the sky, and it was moving back and forth, and, shifting back and forth, and it was at 10 degrees in the sky, and then at a certain amount of time, and I said, well, no, at 8 degrees in the sky, that was Jupiter. And he said, no, I saw it at 10. I said, well, no, I know exactly from my star charts, you're eyeballing 10 degrees. I know that it's 8 degrees. And he said, why is it moving back and forth? And I explained, well, you've got 2 eyes, and so each eye is trying to focus at a far distance, and it's making it look like it's moving back and forth. And that's why telescopes have only one eyepiece in them. So one eye can focus steady. So that's most of it. We don't have a lot of people trying to pull hoaxes on us. We just have people that just know that they've seen something. And they always say, I'm familiar with the sky. And then they're trying to tell me that Jupiter is a UFO, not all that familiar with the sky. But yeah, we don't get a lot of them. When we do get something, it's pretty obvious, that I looked up at the sky and I called for a UFO, and there it was. It came down, and aliens got out, and they were talking to me, and then they showed me all these charts, and they told me save the world, and they went away. I mean, really, they're pretty obvious when they're hoaxes.
Oh, come on. Like you've never summoned UFOs before.
Actually, we did by mistake. I'm going to talk about that in the presentation.
I'm a firm believer in the summoning. I've done it myself. It's weird when it works, when all of a sudden you see something zigzagging across the sky right for your direction. It is weird. It is strange.
Yeah, something similar happened to my brother and myself, and we didn't even mean for it to happen. We were out the other side of Roswell, about 45 minutes out, and he was showing me the new LED lights on his truck, and he was working them by remote control, my brother Chuck. And he said, look, I got a sequence. And he hit the remote control, and these things were flashing in sequence, and something flashed back at us. And it shocked us. It was so dark, we didn't even have a video camera on. We really weren't out to do that. We just decided to go out and sky watch. And we repeated the sequence 3 different times and got the same reaction. It was pretty incredible, a little bit, shocking. There's investigators that shocked us that we got a reaction from something. And we tried it several more times, and it didn't do that after that.
So what do you think about these UFO tours that are popping up all over the place, where people take, it happens in Sedona, it happens in Vegas, San Francisco, a lot of places across the United States and Canada, where people take laser beams up to the sky to see if they could get these power-ups from craft flying over. What do you think about that? Do you buy that? Well,
at first I didn't, I thought, yeah, the whole thing is, not very credible until you accidentally get something to react to you. So I never bought into any of it, and then here it happened to us. However, I wouldn't advise people to be shining laser lights or flashlights or anything up at the sky. You don't know who or what you're attracting. You may get more than you bargained for. It happened to us by accident. That's not something that I would recommend. I mean, seriously, if you have what may or may not be an alien craft up there, and then you're going to track them down to you. I mean, I'm not sure if that's, you may end up with more than you bargained for. I really wouldn't recommend anybody doing that for any reason, let alone paying good money to go out and maybe have some extremely bad experience. And this is just coming from listening to people who have been abducted and what's happened to them and the experiences that they had. I wouldn't advise somebody to encourage that to possibly happen to them.
By what you're saying is, you believe then that most alien encounters are of a negative entity?
Oh, no, but it's a 50-50 shot. If you're going to take a flashlight and you're going to shine up at something and try and attract them and come down to you, there's a 50-50 chance that something's just going to come down to you, take a look at you, give you a big thrill and fly away, and then you got the other 50% chance that someone's going to take you and do unpleasant things to you. You don't know. You don't know who it is you're flashing at. It's like going out in the jungle, got in the jungles in Africa at nighttime, hoping that you can see some animals. You may run into an animal there that you don't like, and you may end up seeing, elephants at night sleeping or something and have a very good experience. But then again, you may be eaten by a tiger. You really don't know. Depends, I guess, on
that is very true. That is very, very true. And in regards to, those people who are having the negative comments, what do you think then of a group like Dr. Edgar Mitchell's Free Experiencers, where their studies have shown, and with over 4,000 people taking their test, that 84 to 86% of them believe their contact has been of a benevolent nature?
I guess good for them. If that's how it works out, I just think that when somebody does that I hope that they're well informed, that if it is of a good experience for them, more power to them. That's good for them if that's what they experience. But there's a good chance of the other. I think when people do something like that, they should go in with their eyes open and know that it could go very, very good and it could go very, very badly. And what'd you say? What percentage was 80-some%? What about the other 15%?
Well, they said, hey, I'm not denying that there are negative consequences to this. Lord knows that I have had positive and negative experiences with extraterrestrials, and a couple times that I recall being taken. It's not fun sometimes, and they don't even give you a kiss goodnight. It's the least they could do.
Right, exactly. And would you encourage that, knowing that there's a good possibility that it may not go well? May be a very good possibility that it does. And then so what if it does go well, or what if now you've attracted somebody where you are the beginning of generations of being involved? Maybe what you're doing is, okay, so you attract some entity that comes down and says I've decided to pick this person, and they put an implant in you. Now they're going to follow you, and from what I understand, there's families that have, they follow generations of families. And so now you may have begun something that's going to not only affect yourself, but it's going to affect your family and generations down the line. Because you took a flashlight, you went out there and shined it up into the sky. It's a big decision.
We only got about 90 seconds left with you tonight, Debbie, and I want to say thank you so much for coming on Spaced Out Radio tonight. What a pleasure to have you.
Oh, thank you so much, and I just want to remind everybody, too, that MUFON does have a conference July 26th through 29th, and it's at Crown Plaza Hotel, Philadelphia, Cherry Hill, and it's in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. And I apologize, I didn't know that was New Jersey, but very good conference every year. And I thank you so much for having me on. And I look forward to coming to Canada in 10 days. Yay.
You should, and enjoy yourself. Just don't get locked up in that Toronto Maple Leafs crap that they got going on over there when it comes to Hockey Town, because there are people literally lined up on the streets of Yonge Street in their lawn chairs still thinking the Stanley Cup parade is coming after 51 years.
Aw.
It's terrible. I know. I know. It's just my shot at the Leaf fans who listen to this show. They know who they are.
Go Blues. well, they were eliminated very early, but
I know.
Next year.
The bad luck that continues with the St. Louis Blues.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
That's what it's called, the Blues.
I know. I get you there. Debbie, quickly, if you could do me a favor, could you list out how people could get a hold of you if they want to find out more information?
My email is MUFON Diver, DIVER, @gmail.com.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Debbie. Really appreciate you coming on Spaced Out Radio. Coming up next, Everett Themer and the Encounter.
Thank you.
This is the winter of our lives. We come to play the final scene. The curtains closing in the darkness we expose what lies beneath.
We're encountering the Encounter tonight with Everett Themer, a new feature here on Spaced Out Radio that we started last night, taking a look around the world at the news of the day, from the strange and the scientific to the weird and the what the hell. We bring in Everett Themer to the show. Everett, how you doing, my friend?
Good, how are you?
I am good, my bud. Really appreciate you coming on in. You're going to give us a news breakdown from around the world. Give us story number one.
Are you a fan or a Redditor, a user of Reddit?
No, I stay away from Reddit. I can't even get into Instagram, my friend. I can't. I don't understand the purpose of it. Twitter, I get. Facebook, I get. This whole Redditor stuff, not me.
Yeah. Well, anyway, some MIT researchers created a psychopathic artificial intelligence algorithm by making it look at Reddit threads of disturbing images. And what they did was they had it analyze all these different images. And when they compared this algorithm's responses to a standard algorithm response, what it said was disturbing. It would show a picture of like somebody with an umbrella, and the standard algorithm, would say something along the lines of a person holding an umbrella in the air. This algorithm, named Norman after the Psycho movie character, would say something along the lines of, a man is shot dead in front of his screaming wife. They analyzed hundreds of different images. And when they were asked why they did this, the researchers basically said that it was to prove that the data that the algorithms analyze can and will affect how they perceive what is going on in the world, and that it can lead to creating an intelligence that can analyze and essentially become smarter than humans.
See, this is what is bugging me about this whole AI thing. I realize that everybody is excited about robots. I got a robot freak sitting right in front of me right now. I do. And the idea behind this whole AI stuff where we are playing with fireman, I really do believe, and maybe it's just me and my own paranoia, but I really do believe that we are playing with fire here, man. I really do. I mean, sex robots, we got the killer robots. I mean, we are literally creating our own demise through AI.
But should we expect anything different? We're creating, the second word of AI is intelligence. So shouldn't we already be expecting that these AI is essentially computer algorithms? True. And they analyze data?
True.
Shouldn't we expect that if one algorithm is exposed to a particular type of data or a particular type of scenario repeatedly, that it is going to interpret the world or see the world in a way different than an algorithm that sees maybe something entirely pleasant for all of its, analytical data.
But isn't this playing God with robots? Isn't it playing God when you were trying to create some psychopathic robot? I mean, yeah, I'm getting Amy Martin in the background. It's like, no, in the background, no, because she's a robot freak. She really is. She's going to, just so you know, Amy and I actually talked about it today, Everett. She's going to build us the official Spaced Out Radio battle bot so we can go on television and, kill other robots.
Nice.
I'll even let you drive because I'm not good with that kind of stuff. You be the driver.
Maybe you should let it watch some or analyze some Reddit threads so it has a little anger in it.
Oh, very good call. So we'll put some Reddit threads in it, along with some electrodes sticking out from it and a big saw blade. We will win it. We will actually, if it's a female robot, and we just let it, put some nagging in there as well.
But going back to what you said about playing God, is it playing God? Isn't the whole AI thing essentially the beginnings of creating a life, in a sense, a life form that is not human, but that was created by humans?
Well, I agree, but if we teach them, think about this for a second. If we teach these AI so much that they can even procreate themselves in a laboratory, because they're not going to do it the good old-fashioned way, get married and then start procreating and building a family. They're not going to do it that way. But if they start figuring out that they could build their own species, we're dead, man. We are dead. I mean, hopefully you and I are long gone before that.
See, I just don't think that I can understand the scenario and looking at the scenario, but I don't see that realistically happening.
Oh, it could. It could. They're going to make a new Stalin, a new Khrushchev, an AI Khrushchev who's going to bang his shoe on the UN desk. That's what's going to happen here. And for us Canadians, they're going to create another Trudeau. Do you know what hell that is for us up here?
Yeah, you know what? I don't even know what to say about Trudeau anymore. I have watched that video with fascination, even though I know that his eyebrow is not falling off.
Oh, that was hilarious, my friend.
It does look good, or I should say, it does look like it's kind of slipping off. But I had left a comment on one of Gail's threads about, haven't we all accidentally shaved off an eyebrow?
No, I've never shaved an eyebrow. I've never shaved an eyebrow. Never. Even when, I think during the teenage years when we were all going through our Vanilla Ice phase, where we wanted the flat top that was tight, I never wanted that. Never wanted to, throw a couple of lines in the eyebrow. I mean, maybe a couple people on Twitter did, like A-Hole Skeptic. I could see him going with the Vanilla Ice look and the MC Hammer baggy pants. I could totally see that.
See, right? I see you shaving one off in college. Just for fun.
No, never did. Never did. Totally
never lived
did
on the edge.
1 second here. You okay, Amy? Okay. Just making sure. She's having a giggle fit right now, an overtired giggle fit. But, yeah. You know what? I will tell you this. I am sick and tired. I'm not a fan of Justin Trudeau. I admit I voted for him. Okay? I made the mistake. I can admit it publicly that I made a mistake. But I did vote for him. But I'm getting sick and tired of people ripping on his socks. I am really getting tired of people ripping on his socks. You can't blame the socks for his head stupidity.
Every Canadian I know seems to have a weird thing about socks. Is it because it's always cold?
What's wrong with the socks, man? You should see mine right now. I'm putting them on Periscope. I got great socks on. Great
the only
socks.
time I wear weird socks is when I have to put on a suit or I'm going golfing. Every time I've seen you or talked to you, you typically tend to be wearing some sort of bizarre socks.
I have 2 pairs of Sasquatch socks, both different.
I don't know if I'd tell people that.
No, I do. I have beer socks, pizza socks, French fries and burger socks, 2 pairs of shark socks, 1 pair of Hockey Canada socks. I got lots of nice socks, man. I'm just tired of people ripping on. Rip on him for the stupid that he does. Don't rip on him for the socks. The socks are good. Anyways, do you have story number 2 here?
Oh yeah, the U.S. Army, and I like this story. The U.S. Army has created an algorithm to help you optimize your caffeine intake.
You of all people would find that story. What number of coffee are you on today?
I don't know, 9 or 10
pots. We're not talking cups here. We're talking pots.
Yeah. Well, with that water situation, I had to lay back on the coffee for a couple of days, and I have to catch up. But anyway, the U.S. Army is developing an algorithm and an app that they can use to figure out how to optimize a person's caffeine intake so that they can maximize their performance. And I think this opens up an interesting door because while most everybody will admit to, having a few cups of coffee a day, when you look at some of the fields out there, especially the military and a variety of different industrial fields, people don't always sleep the way they should or as much as they should. And this gives them the opportunity to kind of avoid that caffeine crash and monitor what they're taking. But I also, on the darker side, look at this and go, is this a way for the military to help or go along with creating some sort of super soldier thing? And I hate to bring that up, but here's the thing. If you're dosing somebody with caffeine, whether it be through coffee or pills, you're essentially giving them a drug to increase their performance. And I think that opens up an interesting door, especially with some of the...
Are you saying you're a super soldier?
No, I'm a highly functional idiot. But I drink a lot of coffee, so I feel like a super soldier.
You drink 90 cups of coffee a day. 90. And people, time out. People who are listening here, we're not even exaggerating. All right? I think the most I've ever heard you drink in a day was about 134 cups of coffee.
But that was a long day.
There aren't that many hours in a day, man. I mean, you of all people should be seeing the benefit of this because they are going to introduce this intravenously.
Well, the problem I have with this, I think it's a great idea and I think it's a great concept, but the idea is that you don't have to over caffeinate. So many people take caffeine, then as soon as they start to crash, they take more caffeine. The idea of this is you can actually reduce your amount of caffeine intake by dosing it at the right times. And I think that's a good idea, but I would like my app, if I had one like this or when it becomes available, I would like it to just tell me to drink another cup of coffee every 5 minutes.
Let's see. If you're going through about a pot of coffee an hour.
Give or take.
And how many hours a day are you awake?
20 or so, maybe more.
So if you're going through a pot of coffee an hour on average, and you're up for 20 hours a day, that's 20 pots of coffee you were drinking.
It rarely goes above 10. So let's say a half a pot an hour, or half a pot an hour.
Okay. So you are giving half a pot an hour of coffee. You could train, you could pay or get paid by the United States Army to train their soldiers how to drink that much coffee.
Hey, I need to send an application for that.
You totally do. You are a walking coffee bean experiment, my friend.
You know what I did learn this past weekend is that my coffee pot, a pot of coffee in my coffee pot is exactly a half gallon. And I was drinking 5 gallons. Cutting back, I was drinking between 4 and 5 gallons of coffee a day. That's what I learned living out of bottled water.
See, in Canada here, it's easy to get our soldiers hyped up on this because we just take it to Tim Hortons for an ice cap. I got that one over you, and I'm going to rub that in. Let's move on to the next story.
Okay. This one, I'm not sure how I feel about this, but there's research that shows that Inca doctors were better at skull surgery than the American surgeons of the Civil War area. They were, well, the Incas were practicing that trepanning. And I have mixed feelings about that. I'm not sure of really its effectiveness, but it's believed that they were using it for everything from, like we would call it epilepsy today to headaches, to different kind of pain issues. And their mortality rate was about 17 to 20%. Whereas with the Civil War medical field, the mortality rate was right around 50% or more.
Could that have had anything to do with the fact that they never cleaned the blades? That they were just going soldier to soldier?
It has potentially a lot to do with that. But what they noticed in doing the research, and they studied hundreds of different skulls from different eras of the Inca period, is that they discovered the surgeons were changing things and adapting and making adjustments in their surgery, essentially perfecting it and working to do a better type of surgery as they went along. And certainly there can be no denying that the hygiene and sanitation of the Civil War era was questionable at best, even on a good day. But they're finding that they believed that these Inca surgeons were a lot more advanced than we're giving them credit for. With that trepanning, it's kind of controversial.
Explain trepanning for people such as the host who don't fully understand what it is.
Essentially, what they do is they drill holes in the skull and expose the brain.
That's what I thought.
And what it can do, it's not readily or typically practiced today, but what it does is they believe it can relieve pressure on different points in the brain, and that can affect different medical conditions.
I wonder you know what? Can I cut you off there for a second? Because I just had a power thought. I wonder if that would actually help people who are suffering from multiple concussions.
That might be something to do some research on if people aren't. What I find interesting about this is if they're doing it, I would love to know the results of these surgeries, because if they're doing it to, let's say, relieve some sort of epileptic condition, they didn't have MRIs back then. They didn't have CAT scans where they could see where the problem is in the brain. They were literally drilling a hole into somebody's head blind.
Ouch. Yeah. And without anesthetic. I mean, they didn't even get them drunk, did they?
No.
Yeah, well, see, that's just wrong. That's just wrong.
Is there something that maybe Western medicine is missing in that potentially certain conditions, certain
I have no idea.
Ailments are typically affected by or affecting particular parts of the brain that the Incas knew about, and that's how they knew how to do this? Because if you came up to me and said, I'm going to drill a hole in your head and it's going to get rid of your headache, I'm running far away. I really am, because that I just can't get it. But they really seem to have proven that the Incas had quite a bit of success.
My friend, I think do we have one more story, or are we going to the thought of the Dave?
Oh, you know what? The next one I have is really long. How about I save it for tomorrow?
Save it for tomorrow.
We'll roll into the thought of the Dave.
All right, here we go. Thought of the Dave happens every night at this time, where we, during the day, ask a question on my Facebook, which goes over to Twitter, and you guys answer it, and we love to keep our audience involved, so therefore, the Thought of the Dave. Today's Thought of the Dave is, would you react if a UFO landed in front of you? What if aliens came out of it? Everett, let's get your opinion first and foremost. How would you react if a UFO landed right in front of you, right now, on your 95th cup of coffee?
You know, I would like to think that I would walk up to them and have a really cool question to ask and get the answers I'm looking for. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. I might just as likely run away screaming like a little child and pee my pants along the way. I don't know.
I doubt it.
But
I think with you, you're going to offer him a cup of coffee.
I might, but you know, the one thing is I really want to know that answer. I hope one day, and I know that people say, don't say this, but I hope to find out.
I hope you do too, my friend. It's pretty trippy. Pretty trippy when you have a craft landing on the ground in front of you. There is a lot of swearing that goes on. And I'm talking power swearing. Like more swearing than happens on an ice rink in the middle of a brawl. And I've been in both. The brawl is more fun. The UFO is a little bit odd, but you still swear just as much. Let's get to what the audience had to say today. Walter says, I'm taking pictures and video. Yeah, sure you are. I'll call you out on that one. Sure you are. Debbie, you really can't do anything. They have the ability to control the environment and your thoughts. Dun, dun, dun. Mary jumps in and says, I'd be busy sending energy frequencies of peace, telepathic peace waves. Probably some flowers, too. And probably shipping the aliens pairs of Birkenstocks. Birkenstocks, Ev. That's funny. This is where you can laugh.
That's funny. It is. And I'm laughing on the inside.
No. We're allowed to laugh in this segment. It's so wrong. It's so wrong. Yeah.
Birkenstocks are wrong with everything.
Oh, there's never a reason for any person on this planet to wear Birkenstocks. We're never going to get them as a sponsor now. Okay. If not Birkenstocks, what are those Crocs? Yeah, we'll send them Crocs. We'll save them for Peppermint Patty here. All right. We'll get them some Crocs instead. Linda says, I'd ask questions. Donna, I'm sure fine. Sure you are. Sure you are. John jumps up and says, I'd snap as many pictures as possible, only to have anyone who saw them call me a hoaxer. Indefinitely. You'd be the indefinite hoaxer. People would never stop calling you that. That's the unfortunate part, Ev. Somebody gets that good evidence, it's fake.
It definitely has to stand up to scrutiny to not be called fake.
Oh, I agree with you. Let's get to Tessa here. My mind would be blown. Every time I see a UFO, I am amazed. I have never witnessed aliens. I would not know what to say or even if they would understand me. But I would hope that they could hear my heart and know I come in peace. See, that's a hopeful message right there. Filled with love. It is.
It is. But, you know.
You can feel your body tensing up, though. Like, aliens, don't take me. Don't take me.
You know, I just think it's hard to really, for anybody, gauge how they're going to react in such an extreme situation.
I agree. I mean, how many times have we talked about on this show, how would you react? We even talked about it tonight.
Yeah.
How would you react? All right. Kelly says, I would ask to take the ship for a joyride. Yes, that is a good answer. Carl owes me a flight. Damn it, Carl. Damn it. Where's Carl? Maybe tomorrow night. The last time he appeared was when Olaf Phillips was on the show. That's when we heard that in the backyard and up the driveway when Olaf was on the show. Maybe we'll get some of that tomorrow night.
Hey, if you do, send him my way and have him pick me up, too.
Dude, no way. You're not getting a flight before me. Carl owes me big time. But I will say this, Ev. I'll make sure there's room for you, and then we got to go to North Carolina and pick up the preacher. Then we're going to take that UFO underwater so I can get some megalodon teeth from the shores of North Carolina. All right? In the water there. And I'll bring them home for the boy as a souvenir. How about that?
That sounds like a fun night.
But before we do that, we're going to stop in Staten Island, New York, and go raid Bumblefoot's guitar collection.
Can we stop at a Tim Hortons somewhere along the line?
Sure. We will stop at Tim Hortons and get you an ice cap. Would you like a Canadian one or an Ohio one?
I'll settle for either.
Yeah, they're still just as good. Either way, I've had both. It's all good. All right. Kevin, I'd have the ship washed, waxed, and detailed. I can't have stardust and space bugs contaminating the zoysia grass in my front lawn. Besides, this is Earth, damn it. We pimp it.
I'm not sure that zoysia grass isn't from some other planet.
I'm not sure. This one made me laugh. Thanks, Kevin, a.k.a. Mooney in the Spreaker chat room. Eric with a K jumps in and says, I'd be thrilled. SOR Cat, you son of a bee. How dare you leave me behind like that? I'm telling your mother what you did. We move on. Craig, otherwise known as Milo around these parts. I think they would be mind controlling me. I'd likely freeze and be at their mercy. We'd have to ask Whitley about that.
See, I think that's an honest answer. I believe that
I do too.
Would be possible.
We're going to whip through a few more of these because we're running out of time. Fred says, I'd smile. Hopefully you brushed your teeth and maybe flossed. Charles, very interested and ready to run. That's an honest answer too, Ev. I think people would run. Mick jumps in, says, here in Australia, a UFO landed on a school oval about 45 years ago. They interviewed a few of the 200 children 40 years later as adults. They still recounted what they saw. The aliens came out of the oval. Scary stuff. All right. Lori jumps in. What does your planet look like? How do you travel? Can you travel through time? Are you remotely human at all? Are you aware that you are a fallen angel? Etc. So many questions. So many questions, my friend. And
I don't know if I could. I don't know if I could answer or ask that many in the time it would take me to run away.
We're going to end it with Nick. Nick says, I'd probably be speechless. Hopefully they are friendly. If not, I guess I kiss my ass goodbye. And just like that, I'm going to say goodbye to you, Everett Themer. But I'm not
thanks for having me.
I'm not kissing your butt goodbye, though. Because we'll see you
I
tomorrow.
wouldn't want you to.
We'll see you tomorrow night with The Encounter.
Excellent. All
right, Everett Themer from The Encounter Online. We are revamping our news section at spacedoutradio.com. That'll be coming in a couple of weeks. Everett and Abby are going to be kicking butt, getting the stories for you every single night. We also say thank you to Deb Ziegelmeyer for being on the show for the first 2.5 hours. Talking about UFOs, the Alien Cosmic Expo, and so much more. Thank you, Debbie, for coming on Spaced Out Radio tonight. Tomorrow night on the program, Olaf Phillips will be joining us to talk UFOs, secret space program, anything else weird and strange. And we'll even talk a little bit about Carl. 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern time at spacedoutradio.com. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot THAL rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening at home, in your cars, at work, wherever you may be. Yes, you and you and you. Appreciate that. for you tuning on in. And a big thanks to everyone watching on Periscope.tv. You were amazing tonight. Thanks for the great comments and conversation. Everyone on Spreaker, way to keep that chat room moving. I think over 1,200 comments on there tonight. Everybody on Twitter at hashtag Spaced Out Radio. The Fashionista, Mr. A-Hole Skeptic on there, said he would blow us away with his fashion sense. Thank you for that at hashtag Spaced Out Radio. And, of course, the Veterans Club on Facebook, the SOR Space Travelers. Thanks for making it a great night. Thanks for telling your friends about our show, making us bigger every single night, because together, my friends, we own the night. Talk to you in 21 hours from now. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home.